This broadcast of In Focus is being made possible through the support of Reed Health. Reed Health, right beside you. And by First Bank Richmond, with 8 locations serving Wayne County. First Bank Richmond and you, doing great things together. Good evening and welcome to tonight's In Focus election special on Whitewater Community Television's WCTV Channel 11. I'm Eric Marsh, Executive Director of Whitewater Community Television. Glad you're able to join us for the wrap-up of what has been, for some people, a very, very long process. I'm glad to be joined by Melissa Vance, President and CEO of the Wayne County Area Chamber of Commerce, who is our partners in the In Focus candidate forums and election specials, and thanks for being here.
My pleasure. It's been a fun ride. I'm sure you will miss me next week, but.
See if that works. My mouth is moving, but nothing's coming out, I'm being told. See if that works. We are being joined this evening by Tom Firkenhoff, who is a candidate, as well as right now representing the Libertarian Party as the party chair here in Wayne County. Thanks for being here.
Oh, you're welcome. Glad to be here.
Gary Saunders, representing the Republican Party as their party chair.
Thank you.
How are you, sir?
I'm great.
Good. And Beth, how are you this evening?
I'm great. Thanks for having us.
Good. Beth Herrick is the Democrat Party chair for Wayne County. Glad that you're all able to join us. I'm going to start with you because you're kind of wearing 2 hats almost tonight.
Yes, I have been.
You've been out obviously all day in your shirt. How have
6
things
o'clock
been
this morning.
going for you today? What have you seen? How many places have you been?
Today I started out in College Corner, then went to Liberty, then about 4 or 5 different places in Wayne County, and I've seen steady crowds everywhere. I mean, very steady. And I was out for early voting this week throughout Wayne County. It was steady at every polling place, it seemed like. But we've had just super response from people. I was really impressed by the number of people who stop and talk to you. And it's definitely much more civil here in Wayne County than it is in Washington right now.
Gary, you've taken a lot of people through this process. The Republicans obviously have the lion's share of folks on the ballot. What's the process been like for most of them? For most of them, it's been a relatively easy process, but what's it been like for you?
For most of them, but we've worked hard with the candidates. We've got out and walked, helped the candidates walk. Mm-hmm. Also, we were able to raise money for the candidates to help them, so they didn't have much of it out of their pockets. So, but it's been a process that, like Tom says, it's a lot calmer here than it is in Washington, and
That's
when
why
you
we're
get
here.
up in the state races, it's just I'm just be glad when it's over with.
We're getting close. And Beth, this is your first full process as the party chair for the Democrats, right? First
Yes,
full election
yes.
cycle. What has this been like for you, seeing it on the side as the party chair?
There's a lot of energy around an election cycle, and the candidates bring such a vibrant energy as well. So trying to keep pace with them has been fun and tiring, but it's really worthwhile to see the candidates engaging with the constituents. We've got some great candidates that I'm proud to support, and really excited to see the results tonight. Yeah.
I think one of the neat things about this process is exactly that. It's seeing the candidates, interacting with the public, and listening to what their constituents have to say and what's important to them. And it's kind of a neat time in our society to be able to witness this and participate.
It's democracy in its finest, and seeing the real civics work, the civics engagement. Voter turnout has shown us that people really want to have a voice right now, and we need more people to have a voice too, but we've seen really great numbers especially for a midterm compared to past years, and I hope that those just continue to rise steadily.
Right.
as you all have traveled around with candidates or as a candidate, I'm curious, what are the issues that seem to be driving people in Wayne County, the 6th Congressional District, because you've traveled the 19-county area?
Right.
We know what the conversation is coming out of Washington. What's the conversation here at home? What's affecting people? What are they wanting our representatives to do for them?
I mean, the number one thing I heard every place I went this summer was the opioid crisis. Behind that was probably the national debt and the deficit and the fact that they're doing nothing to curb spending. I think those are the two big things that people throughout the district are being affected by. They're either being affected by it or they're very concerned about the future effect of it.
What do you want here?
You know, on the local level, people are interested, especially the opioid problem we have today, like Tom said. That's on everybody's mind. Even so many people are even connected directly, a family member, a relative, or something like that, and it's really a hot issue. That and, you know, taxes, they want to be sure they're getting the best bang for their bucks when they pay their taxes. So I feel like we've done a good job of that. But that seems to be the main thing that people's interested in.
What are you hearing, Beth? You've traveled around.
The
a bit.
opioid crisis most definitely has been on people's mind. Also, poverty and its correlates has just been devastating for our community in the recent and longer term past. And I think another piece with RFRA, not in too distant memory of ours, the fact that we don't have a state hate crimes legislation in one of five states in the United States that doesn't have that legislation. A lot of folks that we've talked to want to see those policies and support for some of those issues.
So, you said, looking a little bit ahead tonight,
Yeah.
candidates or races that you feel like are closer than others? I mean, obviously, there are always those that are a little more front of mind. Ideas on that?
Well, I think the Ron Donnelly race is going to be really close. It's going to be close to call for a while till all results come in out of the whole state, so that area. So I think that's really the one. And of course, you know, Beth Leisure and Nick Elder, that's could be close.
The one thing I've heard from people a lot over the last 2 weeks, but particularly as I've talked to people today, they've reached the point of being up to here and beyond with really both the Donnelly advertising and the Braun advertising combined. They haven't been separated. It hasn't been a party thing one way or the other. Have you all gotten that as you all have reached out to people, and is it affecting how people feel about politics in this area? The fact that a statewide Senate race has wasted so much money, and really not saying a lot about what they would do to help their constituents. And has that kind of turned people off a little bit, do you think, or has it energized people to want to get out there and help make a decision?
I think it's energized a lot of people. With the turnout we've got, I think something in that advertisement has just struck a chord on them to make them really pay attention, and that's what they're voting for is that.
Did it make them pay attention, or did it just get pushed in their face so much they couldn't avoid it?
Well, it might have got pushed in their face so much, but something has ticked people off
I agree with that.
one way or the other.
I agree with that.
And so it just, and so much outside money coming in, from Washington and all over. And, what a day went by, you didn't get an email from somebody from another state wanting you to donate money to them. So it's really, gotten serious with trying to raise money. So.
Yeah.
The media saturation at the Senate race has been high, and I feel like people have really been saturated with that. I'm not sure how much some of those media dollars that have been spent have influenced voters, though. That's not for me to know. They pay a lot of people a lot of money to know that stuff. That's way above what I do. But I do agree with what Gary said at the latter point, that something is motivating people. Is this a referendum on the national leadership? Is this a referendum on some issues that have come up for national, on the national scale? What is it a referendum on? Or is it a referendum on Joe Donnelly? I don't know. We'll find out. But it's been such a toss-up for so long that.
I think it's interesting that, you kind of hit on it with the negativity of the advertising, especially on the public stations, to be able to, every time you turn the channel, hear a negative ad about one of the candidates. And maybe it's just me being Miss Positivity, I don't know.
Go
but
for it.
I feel like in Wayne County, we don't respond as well to negative advertising as we do to positive advertising. And I would personally, and I've heard many people say this over the last couple months, much rather hear what someone is for versus what they're against. And, I just think it's a little bit different maybe over here in our part of the state or in our part of the country on what we respond to, but.
Yeah, I think everybody says that, but then you always see if one candidate goes negative, they win. Then you get a case like this where both candidates go negative. I think they just cancel everybody out, and it's just noise, and everybody hits the mute button as soon as you see their face on television. And I put a tongue-in-cheek post up on my Facebook page about, when you vote early, you get a code from the FEC that you say, I've already voted, you don't get those ads anymore. And that post just blew up. I mean, it was the most commented on and liked post that I had my entire campaign. So it's obviously a hot button with a lot of people out there that are just really tired of the negativity and the.
Boy, if you could make that work, I think everyone would be really happy.
Of course, the media ought to be real happy right now with the money
they're-
they're getting
oh, yeah.
they're
bought
ecstatic.
in. I don't know what they're going to do after the election's over with.
As somebody who had to run for office over a very large area of 19 counties,
Yeah.
the ability to be able to raise money, how did that affect what you were able to do, what you felt like you were able to accomplish, how much you're able to get your name out there and tell people what you're doing? I know there's social media, but obviously that media buy makes a difference.
Yeah, I mean, it does make a difference. And, really in my race, at the very end, we saw Greg Pence running some ads. I don't think Janine had any big media buys out there. But I felt like for the money we were able to raise, we were pretty effective in getting our name out. It meant putting a lot of miles on, making a lot of personal appearances, and, really trying to reach out through every social media and every grassroots and, friends and family and everybody you meet along the way, contacting people. And it's really the only way to do it and one of the issues with our area is there's really no central media source. The Madison area gets their news out of Louisville, southeastern Indiana comes out of Cincinnati, you get some out of Indianapolis, this area out of Dayton, so you've got 4 different major media markets hitting there, so you really can't make just one central media buy to really be effective. And so unless you're going to spend the money that Lamb and Pence spent in the primary, you're not going to be effective with mass media.
You're watching the In Focus election special on Whitewater Community Television, WCTV Channel 11. We're speaking with Beth Herrick, Gary Saunders, Tom Ferkenhoff, who are the party chairs for the Democrat, Republican, and Libertarian Party. Melissa Vance, President, CEO of the Wayne County Area Chamber, joining us this evening. We're going to wrap this up and let you all go do whatever it is party chairs do on election night. Are you all responsible for throwing the party?
We're going to sit there and shake for a while.
Just curious. Obviously, we're all anxious for this cycle to end, but we know another one will begin just after the holiday season, believe it or not, looking at municipal races. Let's start with you, Beth. What is your field of candidates looking like? Who have you talked to? Are you hearing, and I'm not looking for names necessarily, that you're going to be able to field a full set of candidates for some of the municipal races that are going on?
You feel really good about putting together a strong set of candidates. There's strong interest for the Richmond city election, and I think a lot of your viewers will be happy to see who's going to run on the ticket.
What do you think a couple of the issues are going to be that they're going to face?
Well, right now, I think that we need a little bit of healing time. You know, there have been some pretty contentious issues that have come up, and the way that they've been handled from city council, you know, it got a little spicy. So Complete Streets project being one, but there was also the solar power issue that I think got a little bit, you know, excitement happening around it. So I think that having representatives that are willing to slow down, listen, and make sure that there's always respect being shown and given and expected to be received. Because you know, it got a little. I got more complaints and more calls about that one issue than every other thing that I'd ever heard about in the year and a half. I don't know, Gary, you heard anything about that? It certainly
Really,
came across my desk.
Really not. There's a guy, Facebook all the time, and sent out emails, and Skelton and me, or somebody sitting at his computer, where's Gary Saunders? Well, I'm more interested right now concentrating on the fall election, and we get together and see what we can do. We've got people interested in running for offices, and so they'll make their decision after the first year whether they'll run or not.
Do you think there's one or two local issues that will kind of permeate the conversation?
Yeah, I think the biggest complaint you hear is that all the construction that's going on, the bike path, all the street construction, everything happens at the same time. And it's almost impossible to get around Richmond anymore. So, but that's the big issue here. I realize the money's come in here. It's come in at once, but some of it was delayed for a couple of years, and was lucky enough to get it back for some of the programs, and so. But it's all happening at once. And that's a big issue with a lot of people.
Tom, I know the Libertarian Party has not done a lot with local elections. I know there's a judge over in Hagerstown and some
Correct.
other things.
Yeah.
Do you foresee that changing a little bit? Are you hearing any interest in candidates trying to get involved in more municipal races?
In some of the outlying localities, I've had some people talk to me at the Wayne County Fair this year, be a little bit interested. We've had a lot of interest from young people in the parties. We're kind of trying to get them plugged in and then try to build a little more infrastructure. We've got a really strong party over in Henry County, and they had a really nice slate on the county election. So we're trying to get some input from them on how to grow things and try to build up that side a little bit here. But always I've been had other focuses up through 6 o'clock this evening, so now that that's over, we can start to look at that a little more.
Okay. Good luck to you the rest of the evening as you're looking for the numbers to come
Well,
through.
thank you.
Thank you all for spending a little bit of time with us. We're going to take a break. We'll come back. Kathy Williams and Nancy Funk are going to be here to talk about taxes, everybody's favorite conversation, but also the launching of a nuclear sub, the USS Indiana. That'll be coming up as we continue with the In Focus Election Special on Whitewater Community Television's WGTV, Channel 11.
Well, let's see if we can't get someone on here.
Hi, how can I help you today?
My dad is really sick, and I just don't want to take him out in this weather.
Okay, let's get him feeling better.
Receive quality care in minutes, even in the middle of the night. Read Health Now, right beside you.
Hi, how can I help you?
My daughter has a fever and she isn't feeling well.
Okay, let's get her feeling better.
Receive quality care within the comfort of your own home. Read Health Now, right beside you.
Hi, I'm Eric Marsh. This month's Access to the Arts takes us from the Whitewater Valley Art Exhibit at IU East to Goddard Auditorium at Earlham College to the Murray Theater. Don't miss our conversations with Lance Crow from RAM, John Cook from Civic Hall Performing Arts Center, and our Artist Spotlight.
A firing style called raku, which is it's an ancient Japanese family, and we've kind of westernized raku from what it used to be.
Access to the Arts, 9 p.m. Thursday evenings on WETV, Channel 20.
3 years ago, I came here to play basketball here at IU East, and I'm a business finance major, and I really just wanted to get into a bank, and First Bank Richmond was very accepting and it gave me an opportunity. I kind of got to see more as an employee instead of a student athlete of how they really impact the community. Back home, I feel like there's really not an organization like First Bank Richmond that gives back to their community like they do here in Richmond. First Bank Richmond is just very generous in all that they do in the community, and that is tremendous.
My dad was in Vietnam and he fought for us, and I think it's a privilege to vote.
I'm upper 20s and I feel like a lot of people my age don't vote, so I think it's an important right that we do have as Americans, but also a lot of times in elections along these lines where it's a midterm election, only the older population votes, and so I feel like it's important for people my age to get out and represent our opinions as well as the older population.
And thanks to Anthony Crespin, who went out and did a little visiting of some of the polling places in Cambridge City, Centerville, and here in Richmond for grabbing some of that footage and some of those comments about Election Day here going on in Wayne County. We're joined by Melissa Vance, President and CEO of the Wayne County Area Chamber of Commerce, helping me get through the next hour and a half, maybe?
Couple hours, maybe. Yeah, it's a pleasure, as always.
And we've changed out some of the seats. Hi.
Hello. Hello.
Kathy Williams, Wayne County Treasurer. Nancy Funk, Deputy Treasurer. Is that the official title?
Deputy Treasurer.
Chief
Yes.
Deputy Treasurer.
Yes.
Excuse me. I got to
Yes.
keep that underlined. Ladies, thanks for being here.
You're welcome. Thanks for having us.
Always, because we know right around this time, because we've done this before, you like to come in and remind people to pay their taxes. I don't know why you want to do that.
I do, because I tell you, it is the worst thing in the world when somebody comes in the day after and they have a penalty. Why didn't I know? I'm only one day late. What can you do? And we can't do anything to help them. So we try to tell people ahead of time, as you know. We send out a notice to the media, the radio stations, the newspapers. Please tell folks that the deadline, and while we're at it, the deadline this year is Tuesday, November 13th.
Okay.
And we are closed on Monday, the 12th, in observance of Veterans Day, but we are open the 13th, and that is the tax deadline date.
Okay. There's actually a little place, if they go to the Annex building, I was there today, there's parking spaces held. If you want to go pay
Yes.
your taxes, you have parking spaces for them.
Parking seems to be a premium, but we do have signs out, and we've had a lot of folks in. It's just tough when the courts are busy and they're placing jurors, for the trials, and then you have people voting, you have people paying taxes. It gets crazy, but the county, has done well, the commissioners and council, with getting the parking spaces and trying to accommodate everyone. So we try really, really hard, and we do put out signs, please don't park here unless you're paying taxes, just because those folks are in and out fairly quickly. And we have a lot of older people that come in that really need to be close to the doors to get in and out.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. And there was information that was up on the screen for them also. And if they're not paying, there a Dropbox or a location or someplace that could do that?
There is a Dropbox on the west side of the building. And actually, you can put your payment in there on the 13th up to midnight. I go back at midnight and pull all the payments out, and those are on time. And if it has a U.S. postmark, and we get it the 15th or the 20th or December, as long as it has the U.S. postmark, it will be on time for November 13th. So we try to be very vigilant and take care of that for the taxpayers also, so that they don't get a penalty when they shouldn't.
Okay. Now, both of you had a chance to go to Florida recently.
We did.
Was it a good time? Let's start there.
It was wonderful.
Okay. Now, we have to tell people you didn't just go on vacation.
No, we did not.
And this is something that you've been working on, I know, for the
Over a
last...
year.
Okay,
It's been
over a year. Okay.
Yes, so last year when I went to a conference, which was for the Association of Indiana Counties, which is every treasurer, every councilman, every commissioner, every coroner, every clerk, all of the elected officials, they did a presentation on the USS Indiana, which is a brand new Virginia-class fast attack nuclear submarine. I want to make sure I get that correct because I've had people ask me. And that was being built and commissioned September 29th of this year. And Nancy and I became interested in that at conference last year. And the gentleman that did the presentation called me later and said, would you be on the commissioning committee? Not knowing what I was doing, actually. I said, well, sure. You know, my father was in the Navy and the Army both, so great, I could help. So then Nancy helped me, and we did a lot of things for the commissioning of that ship.
How was it for you, and what kind of things did you do?
It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity.
And we're seeing some pictures that you all supplied to us as you talked to us.
We made goodie bags for all the sailors on the ship. I think they appreciate that very much. We got a VIP tour of the submarine, which I'm glad someone wants to do that. It would not be my cup of tea.
Now, I understand that you weren't allowed to take pictures inside the sub.
No. We even had to take off our smart watches. We weren't allowed to wear those in the sub either. So
wow.
You had to take everything off, climb down a ladder, and you're there.
So what's it like inside for those of us that have never been inside a sub?
Very small. Small. If you're a very tall man, and Nancy's husband is, his head didn't hit the ceiling, but it was very, very close.
Okay.
You really couldn't be a very large person and do well on a submarine. And if you're claustrophobic at all, and they told us if you're the least little bit, don't go, because you literally, like in the movies, they open the portal or whatever, and straight down you go the ladder, and it was 3 stories. We do 1, and then we go down, and there were a total of 3. But it was so interesting, oh my word. And the one thing that we thought this was really cool, and we were all like, well, that looks like an Xbox 360 joystick. And they said, it is. That's what
They're running the sub with an Xbox?
That's what runs the periscope. They said that they wanted them to build the sub, which actually was like $1 billion machine, and to use as many off-the-shelf parts as they could. And that was one that the average age of the sailors is probably 22, 23 years old. Okay. They all know how to operate that with no problem. And one thing, when we had dinner with the Rear Admiral of the 4th Fleet, and he's like over the entire 4th Fleet, and he said that the majority of the sailors on that ship already have a college degree. So that tells you how smart these people are. And if you're putting $1 billion in their hands, they better be.
Absolutely.
And they were, oh my goodness, they were so proud of that ship.
Yes.
Weren't they, Nancy?
Yes.
The crew members just talking to us. And they were absolutely thrilled that the people from Indiana came. There were 25 of us approximately that came in this group. Okay. And we had several state legislators. Representative Tom Saunders was one, and several others. And they were just so thrilled that we would spend our money. You know, no one paid for this for any of us. We paid for that and went and would do that for them. And when we went to the actual commissioning, you see some of the pictures there. There were 5,500 people that came to this commissioning, and we sat 4th row from the front. Because of being on the commissioning committee, we then sat with the VIP people, and it was wonderful. And I'm telling you, when you see this on what you're watching, those soldiers are running, and the band is playing Anchors Aweigh. And talk about pulling your heartstrings, your patriotic heartstrings. That did it. I could tear up just watching them. It was just fantastic. You just have no idea. Because what the commander said is, Indiana, and they all hopped to attention, you know, man your ship, and away they went. I mean, it was just fabulous.
For anyone who has family members that are in any branch of the service, this is the kind of thing that just,
Yes.
like you said, it pulls at your heartstrings. It's amazing that there are men and women that are willing to go and serve, and how special it
Yes.
is that this is named after our great state.
Yes, and Governor Holcomb was there, and he got a 19-gun salute, and every time the cannon went off, I assume it was cannon, you felt it in your heart, and then you heard it miles down the pier. I mean, it was amazing. I've never been to any such thing. It was just fantastic. It really was, and that we got to be a part of that, because that will never happen again. But I will say this, I would like to thank all of our veterans, our current military people, because it's not just the people on the Indiana, it's all of them that sacrifice. And when you realize the time, these people, and as the commander said, this is all volunteer. All of these people volunteered to go in and do this service. And it just is, how many of us today, could you do that? It would be tough. And we really owe them a great debt. Truly, we do.
And obviously, we have Veterans Day coming up next week.
Yes, we do.
Great time to remember that, but it's something that we should keep top of mind always.
Yes.
And just being grateful.
Ladies, thank you very much for going, for representing
you.
the area, for coming in this evening, and for sharing your pictures and video with us. We do greatly appreciate it.
Thank you for having us. We appreciate it as well.
Sure. We're going to take a break, come back with more of the In Focus Election Special on Whitewater Community Television's WGTV, Channel 11.
Three years ago, I came here to play basketball here at IU East, and I'm a business finance major, and I really just wanted to get into a bank, and First Bank Richmond was very accepting and it gave me an opportunity. I kind of got to see more as an employee instead of a student athlete of how they really impact the community. Back home, I feel like there's really not an organization like First Bank Richmond that gives back to their community like they do here in Richmond. First Bank Richmond is just very generous in all that they do in the community, and that is tremendous.
Greetings, Red Wolf Nation. This is Kyle Wright with the Indiana University East Athletic Department. We hope you'll join us on Friday nights for Inside IU East Sports, a weekly television program where we meet the players, coaches, and athletes who are part of Red Wolf Nation and Indiana University East Athletics. Watch Inside IU East Sports on Friday evenings on WETV Channel 20.
Hello, I'm Rachel Hughes, co-host of The Third Sector. Join me this month as my guests are Shane Eddington with Whitewater Valley Pro Bono.
Really surprised that as long as we've been around as an organization that there's still so many people who don't know about us.
And Charlene George with Open Arms Ministries.
Open Arms Ministries is a partnership of now 14 churches.
The Third Sector airs Thursdays at 8:30 p.m. on WETV Channel 20.
For many kids, just showing up to school is a challenge. Staying through graduation is even harder. So at communities and schools, we do just what our name says. Our staff brings a community of resources to meet each student's needs right in their school, doing whatever it takes to keep kids focused, so they see what we see, a bright future. Join in at communitiesinschools.org.
Welcome back to the In Focus Election Special on Whitewater Community Television's WGTV Channel 11, a service of Whitewater Community Television and the Wayne County Area Chamber of Commerce, and being made possible through the support of First Bank Richmond and Reed Health. We appreciate their support. We'll let Melissa Vance kind of handle this one. I've been hogging the evening so far.
Well, we have two different guests with us. I'm not going to say new because you all have been with us on air before, but I'm just going to let you introduce yourselves. Betty?
My name is Betty Smith Henson, and I'm the Wayne County Assessor. I ran for Wayne County Assessor, and I had no competition, so I am in as your assessor for 4 more years, and I look forward to it. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Robert Chamness, and I am the Wayne County Council representative for District 1, which is the east side of Wayne County. And this is my second term that I'll be serving on the council. And the first 4 years were an experience, and we're hopeful that this next 4 years is something that we can do to make everything happen the way they're supposed to. So we're very positive about it. I've known Betty for probably 25 years, so we're pleased to have her here.
Well, we appreciate you both putting your names on the ballot and being willing to serve our community in the capacities that you are doing, and excited to have you continue. Why don't talk about what are some of the issues that in your first term with council you felt like were important that you all addressed or were able to accomplish?
You know, my first 40 years were spent in the Wayne County government as a police officer, as a deputy sheriff, and then as a court administrator. And I spent 40 years in the criminal justice system before I ran for county council. And this is something that it takes a while to understand. I think the first 4 years, your first term, you're learning, and you're learning to be patient and to understand everything that's going on in county government. And I think hopefully the second term will be a little more opportunistic for us to try to get some things done that we haven't got done in our first term. We just recently finished up our 2019 budget, and that was a struggle, to be quite candid. I mean, many needs and not many resources, and that causes us to really look hard at issues and to try to come up with something that benefits not just the employees of Wayne County, but all of the citizens of Wayne County in a way that is fair and equitable. So those are the real struggles, is trying to find fair and equitable issues for everyone. And I know Betty's been at this for a lot longer than I have, so I'm sure she has a few battle scars to show in regards to all of the elections that she's run in.
Well, that's a good segue. Betty, why don't you talk a little bit about some of the things you've been working on? What are some things that are important to your office and that you hope to accomplish in the next term?
Well, the biggest thing, as Bob just said, is being fair and equitable to everyone. I think that dealing with taxes, if you know that your neighbor is being assessed properly, then none of us like to pay taxes, you know. But if we know that each person is being treated fairly and that they are being assessed fairly, then I think this helps things. And if you have a neighbor, and I use this example all the time, if you have a neighbor and they put a new room addition onto their house, but it's never been assessed, and they're paying the same amount of taxes as you are, only they have more square footage than you do. If you find that out, you're not going to be too happy. So in the assessing world, it's just very important that we make sure we get our job done correctly, and we treat everyone fair and equitable.
Right.
Right now, we're dealing with some new things we're looking into and coming down the road here in a few months, and I'm looking forward to it. And again, it's about being fair and equitable, and it's working with auditing personal property. And I'm sure we'll be hearing more about that in the future. But again, it's being fair and equitable to everyone.
Right. We've had some conversations recently because we're working together on an event on this very issue. But if someone is, as you said, being assessed differently or not assessed appropriately dollar-wise, that can affect the percent that will have to be adjusted. So the tax rate will change in order to balance the budget. And it's better to not have the tax rate go up. It's better just that everybody pay their fair share at the tax rate that's already assessed. So that one person isn't having to pay more than another.
Right.
And on that note, because there are audits coming up next year for personal property taxes, the Chamber is partnering with your office, and we're happy to do so. And Farm Bureau on November 16th at 8:30 in the morning, we're going to be at the Innovation Center for anyone that wants to come and join us and learn more about this auditing process, how you can save yourself money, make sure that you're filing your forms appropriately.
Right.
Avoid penalties and
Right, exactly.
and more, right?
Right, that's exactly right.
Anything you want to add to that while we're on the topic?
I just think it's very important that everyone is treated fair and equitable. And I stand on that, and I'm just very firm on that.
Bob, you mentioned the first 4 years, you're learning a lot. Talk about one or two things that have actually gone well that you're happy with, that you were around for during the council's tenure, during your first term.
One of the things that I personally feel very happy about is the acquisition of Blue Buffalo into Wayne County and bringing 180 plus jobs to the area and investing into the infrastructure to get the roadways fixed up so that their semis can handle that. Those are things that I think is very important. If I had one thing after working in the criminal justice system for 40 years, you know, the main thing that we need here is we need jobs. We need good paying jobs in this community. So that's probably the highlight of my first 4 years. I also think that I was fortunate to come into an experienced council. So there's many members of council who have been there for many years who helped tutor me those first 4 years and teach me the ropes, so to speak. So I feel very, very fortunate to have had that kind of group of men, and soon another lady will be hopefully on our team here. So, but we've had some good people. Pete Zaleski is leaving this year,
Right.
and Pete added some real good stuff to our community and to our council and to the basis for county government, and we wish him the best. Probably the other thing that I think was important that we did was we tried to come up with as much of a balanced budget and a good structure for the courts and for the community and the public corrections, probation, those kinds of things. We did some things. We combined community corrections and probation together and to make some good savings for the community, but also add to that group to make it stronger in our community. So we feel good about that, but lots of work yet to do,
We're going to send you out on that note. I'm curious. One of the things Melissa and I talked about is we want to look forward. We know that you're going to be working on an assessment coming up and trying to make that as fair as possible. What is the one thing maybe in the next 6-8 months you think will face the council that they're going to have to begin to deal with for making things better for the employees and for county residents as a whole?
I think we have to look in the long term. What we did in this year's budget is we brought up the bottom range of salaries for employees so that we can compete with other like-sized counties in bringing qualified, good people into our Wayne County employee base. And so, we found we're doing a complete study over the salary structures of our entire county employee base, comparing it to other like-sized counties, seeing where we're strong, where we're weak. And so this year we brought up the bottom levels to be able to compete, to bring good qualified people. And that I want to see continue. We'll continue into our next phase of looking through the salaries to see if there's any other tweaking that we need to do. And the bottom line, I think, is just looking at our tax base. How much, it's all a basis of revenue in and revenue out. And so we have to have the money and the base to do the things that we need to do as a county, but yet keeping that line of being fair and equitable, as we've mentioned several times here, but also being not over-expanding and keeping our budget in line. That's, to me, is the most important, keeping our budget in line. John Cady was a mentor of mine for many years in this county, and his whole time there, was to keep things in perspective, keep the budget working, and keep it moving. And that's what I look for the next 8 months.
Okay. Thank you both very much. Congratulations on your victory. I hope you get to enjoy it this evening. This is obviously election night. This is about the numbers, and we are waiting, hoping that we'll get some early numbers released from the Wayne County Clerk's office. We have been told that somewhere in the neighborhood of about 9,200 people they think have actually voted today. There were about 11,000 people or so who did some early voting. So we will hopefully be able to get some of those numbers in a while. There was a line at about 5:30. We saw a picture come out of First English Lutheran Church. There was still a line of people waiting to vote. And obviously, if there were people in line at 6 o'clock when the polls closed, those folks still have a chance to get their voting done. So we've got some people watching some of those numbers, waiting for those to come in, and we will begin to bring those to you on the bottom of the screen as soon as they arrive. We're going to take a break, come back in just a little bit, continue with our In Focus election special on Whitewater Community Television's WGTV, Channel 11. Welcome back to the In Focus election special on Whitewater Community Television's WGTV, Channel 11. It's going to be a long night in my ear, I can tell. Thanks for being here with us. Eric Marsh along with Melissa Vance. We've changed out. Oh yeah, it's going to be one of those. We've changed out the seat. He is still, for the time being, 6 weeks and counting?
Yes.
Okay. Wayne County Sheriff Jeff Kappa, thanks for being here. We're getting some updates. A couple of things I want to mention. There's obviously some of the precincts in Johnson County, I understand, were having some issues. So some of their voting got extended to 7 p.m., which doesn't affect us here and what we have, but it may affect what you're hearing for some of the races throughout the state if those polling locations weren't changed. Statewide, there's about 100 precincts in out of about 5,300 that are around the state. In the Senate race, which a lot of people care about right now, Mike Braun is leading by almost a 2-to-1 vote. But again, that's a very small number of precincts in. We are still waiting to hear for sure whether we will get some early numbers out of Wayne County. In the past, we have gotten sometimes early election numbers, early voting numbers given to us somewhere in that 6:30 to 7 o'clock range. We're getting word that maybe we're not going to get that, which means you're going to tap dance for us.
No.
No. I'm curious. You're in a suit, and I've seen you in a suit before, but I've known you for quite a number of years. I associate you with that kind of brown Wayne County outfit. You are giving that up. Now, first of all, I want to say, could you have stepped back to your merit rank if you did not want to retire? You did not have to leave the police force.
No, I could have went back to my merit rank,
Which
was
is?
sergeant. But
Well, that would have been a real drop.
yes, but that's probably, to be honest with you, the middle management sergeant is probably one of the harder jobs on the agency, to be honest about it.
Mm-hmm.
But I've been on the department since 1980, and it's been a great career. And I've been blessed in my career with the agency, and it's been one of my greatest honors to serve 2 terms as the Wayne County Sheriff. Not everyone gets that opportunity, and everything has a shelf life. And I'm looking forward to the next chapter of my family's life and my life. And heard an analogy the other day that I think sums it up the best. That's why the rear view mirror is so small, because you just look at a small portion of that, and that's why the windshield is so large, because you're looking towards the future. So that's how I choose to handle all this. I'm looking towards the future.
That's great.
He's going to be a philosophy major.
Right. An inspirational speaker. Our next chamber speaker, perhaps.
There
Who
you go.
knows?
You guys are bad. I won't say that.
Well, we think we're killing 3 hours here. So I'm curious. You are, as you get closer to the end, somewhat unleashed. Now, you've never been hiding your feelings about some things, but I think as a public official, you probably want to parse your words a little bit sometimes.
Absolutely.
Since you're not running for office again, and it's like, what are they going to do? Fire me time. I've got a couple of topics that I would like, because of your perspective, I'd kind of like to hear your take on. Okay.
Well, I've never been short on words if I feel strongly about something.
That's okay, no problem. There's been a lot of conversation about prison reform, jail reform, and what needs to happen. In your mind, and it's a kind of a broad type question, what could help make our correctional system better?
Well, I think to answer that, let's kind of go back over the history of jails in the state of Indiana first. All right. As you know, they had the criminal justice reform just several years ago, where they looked at the sentencing requirements that we had here in the state of Indiana. And we went from the old system, which was a Class A felony, Class B, C, and D, and they've added 2 levels in between those felonies. Now they list them as a level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And the level 6 felons are now the responsibility of the sheriff, depending on the sentencing requirements that are handed down by the court. That, when that first came out by the state legislature, was an unfunded mandate. Here you go, local sheriffs, you get to hold these inmates without any funding put into place. Luckily, the Indiana Association of Counties, as well as the Indiana Sheriff's Association, started lobbying, and we were able to get that corrected. So that's one part of the equation right there. We're seeing an increase in calls of service. We're seeing an increase with those calls of service, arrests that are being made. We're also seeing an increase in the convictions because of the technology that we have. Also, the officers are more professional. They have more tools at their availability to solve these types of crimes. Now, the second part, where we're coming into, what you were just asking me about, part of the reason that the state of Indiana did what they did with the reform was they didn't want to spend the money to build more prisons, because it's extremely expensive, number one, to build that building, and then staff that building, besides the cost involved per day to take care of that in particular.
House, feed.
Exactly. So you're going to have to look at the strategies that they're using, and the state is doing that now. I will say this, as the sheriff of Wayne County, I have been truly blessed by having a set of judges, all the judges here in Wayne County, that have been mentors as well as professionals who have been not only great to myself as the sheriff, but all the officers here in the Wayne County area. They've been great to work with, and they have helped me keep that population down here locally in our jail through different ideas that they've had and strategies we've tried to work on. Mm-hmm. Is there an answer to the problem? Well, we'll have to wait and see on that right now.
Okay.
But with some of the problems we are experiencing in our society with the opiate epidemic and some of the violent crimes that we're experiencing right now, not property crimes, but I'm talking about crimes against persons.
Right.
It's going to be a long time. The easiest way to answer that also is it took us a long time to get where we're at. It's not going to be solved in 2 or 3 years. It's going to take us a long time to get out of that situation as well.
The idea that of privatizing jails that was tried and
was not successful. Not going back there. Is there actually a way in place to help inmates prepare for time back on the streets after they've gone through jail? Yes.
And is it working well in our communities?
Well, what we're doing locally at our facility is we've had a program involving our kitchen staff that we hire to come in, and they were preparing inmates that were working in the kitchen through a service program that they could get employment once they've got that certification where they're serving time in our jail. We also have other programs that are available in our facility as well, substance abuse programs, Thinking for Change. There's a lot of different programs that we try to prepare those individuals for that particular situation. But sometimes what you'll see is when people, for example, let's say we have someone that's serving time in our facility for heroin possession, and they're also a user, and they're going through the treatment process, and they've also been through the substance abuse program we have at our facility. They've dried out, so to speak. And they're released, and they go back hanging with the same individuals that they were hanging with before, and with the same circles that they were involved in, and they go right back to the same habits they had before.
You know, if the inmate in that situation has no connections outside that are healthy people that will help them get on their feet and be a positive influence, how can they not go back? You know, and so it's that vicious cycle. Is there an answer, a halfway house? Is there this step down, handout kind of possibility that could help these people get on their feet, get a job so they can get their own place and really move into a positive lifestyle?
There is, but with our local community here, again, we've had a lot of good, positive, proactive programs that have been tried within our community. But you also have to remember that we are only so large, and all of those programs are competing for the same dollars. So until there is more money made available by the federal government, as well as the state legislature, I'm not saying that they haven't tried, I'm just saying until that happens to be able to give the resources for them to do that, you have 10 people or 10 programs competing for the same dollar. And until there are more dollars made available for them to be able to access some of these other programs, you're exactly right. But addiction is a very hard, vicious circle to break. And we're not just talking about heroin addiction, methamphetamine addiction, and there's other addictions that we're dealing with as well. Then you get into the health issues that you're dealing with the inmate population that you have in your facility. Mm-hmm. With all these drug issues that we have going on right now, I asked, and I was very lucky that the commissioners and the county council agreed with me that we went to 24/7 medical in our facility back in 2012 to make sure we can maintain the level of health that we could inside the facility for those inmates. If you would experience a jail death in your facility because you're not maintaining the standards you should be maintaining, that's a liability to the taxpayers.
What's the biggest issue in the Wayne County Jail that the residents may not be aware of that you all face?
Is the health care of those inmates. The accreditation has been an extreme positive for the Wayne County citizens that we have, both in the enforcement division and the jail division, but we're talking about the jail right now. That's over 500 standards that we had to meet by a governing body of the accreditation that came in and basically did the assessment of our facility. But we're not only accredited in the jail division for our normal everyday operating procedures, our medical department is also accredited, which means we meet the highest standards for jail medical. We have a nurse or an LPN that's inside our facility 24/7, 365. Our officers are trained in emergency medical, but my officers are not trained to do triage.
Right.
Someone has a cardiac event, they're trained in CPR, how to use the AED and those type of things. You want someone who is trained to do triaging inside the facility 24/7, so we have a medical issue. But that medical professional can say, yes, there is a medical issue, or the person's faking.
Right.
You're watching the In Focus Election Special on Whitewater Community Television's WGTV Channel 11. We're being joined by Sheriff Jeff Kappa of Wayne County Sheriff. The numbers that you are seeing are early vote numbers. Those are not final numbers. Those are numbers from early voting, and we will continue to keep those up on the screen, and we'll highlight some of those as we go through the evening. But waiting, again, you're seeing some of the early voting numbers, and remember the numbers were there were some 11,000 or so people who voted early here in Wayne County, so you're seeing some of those particular results. I'm not going to try to put you in the middle of a disagreement, but I am curious from your standpoint. The Wayne County commissioners allowed there to be a needle exchange program. They were given that permission by law, passed by the state. The prosecutor has a problem with that, and as a law enforcement official, I get it. And when we had the Senate candidates here, I tried to see, should the legislature do something that would give the commissioners a bit more cover? Kind of balance those two and help us explain the needs of both of those sides of that argument. You're somewhat in the middle of that argument as a law enforcement person,
But the way he said he's not going to put me on the spot.
Yeah, but he really is.
What's he going to do, arrest me?
That's all right, okay.
But hell, I mean, it's something that's been public. It hasn't been a private discussion by any stretch of the imagination.
No, it hasn't.
So kind of help us get a handle on that a little bit.
I can give you my opinion as a law enforcement officer.
Go for it.
I don't see a lot of positives in it right now.
Okay.
From what I'm hearing from officers on the street is that they're seeing a lot of those needles being used by individuals that are on the street. I understand that we have hepatitis A outbreak in this area, and I think it's one of those situations where people are trying to do the right thing. But you have to look at both cause and effect. And correlation doesn't always mean causation, I understand that, but when we're making stops on the street or officers are making an arrest and these needles are marked a certain way so we can tell if they came from the needle exchange program. And we're seeing large quantities of those needles on individuals that are being arrested. Is it a correlation or is it actually working?
How do we, as residents, because at some point we're going to have to talk to our commissioners, we're going to have to talk to the new sheriff, we're going to have to talk to the prosecutor, either through the ballot box or whatever, to figure out some way of making this work. Any suggestions on your side as to what we just need to be looking at and evaluating, and how long a period of time do you think that evaluation process needs to be?
Well, I'm not a physician, I'm just a law enforcement officer, and I certainly will not try to speak for Sheriff Rutter. But I feel that some more data needs to be collected, number one, and what the perimeters of what that data will be should be determined by the healthcare professionals in conjunction with the law enforcement professionals. Once they look at the data, excuse me, and they can tell either the program is a success or it's not a success, then they need to make a decision at that point. Do we continue it or we do not continue this program? Basically, it boils down basically to simple facts of strategic planning.
Are there other programs that other communities are doing that have been effective that Wayne County should look at?
Well, there is. There has been Vivitrol that's been used in some of the other counties. We did try that here with our department. We did a small test pilot program with that. The problem we saw with that was that we made arrangements with a local mental health here in town. They would pick the inmate up from our facility, take them to the location, fill out all the paperwork, and give them the first injection of the Vivitrol. The problem was they never returned to receive further treatment to take care of that particular situation. Education will be a big part in this.
Education of?
Education of any of those individuals, education to the public, education to the inmates, education to the officers, which we continually do right now, and the public, educating them more on what to look for and how to handle that.
Where should that, do you think, come from, that education piece for the public?
Actually, Sheriff Rutter's actually even addressed that in his 4-year plan. So I think that's something that Randy should talk about, and I think it'll be something that will be received by the public very well, and with part of his community outreach that he's trying to do.
Great.
Cool. So where's the vacation? we're going on vacation. Come on, man, you're done. Listen, you got to be one of those. You've been banking the sick time. You've been banking the vacation time. We know you've only got 6 weeks left, but you've probably got 8 in vacation time, right?
Oh, I wish.
Right? Is it mountains? Is it beach? You know.
Well, actually, we just got back from vacation. We were visiting our children down south and all the way out into the California area. But that will be up to my lovely wife, where she decides that we're going to go.
You know I'm only kidding. We appreciate everything that you have done through the years for Wayne County. Thanks for spending some time with us this evening.
I appreciate you asking. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Not a problem.
Thank you.
Wayne County Sheriff for another 6 weeks or so, Jeff Kappa. We're going to take a break. We'll continue as we go through the evening to keep those numbers up. Those, again, are early vote numbers, and we'll talk about a few of those. We'll also continue with some guests, including Brenda and Jim McLean, owners of Hometown Media Group. But up next, we've got Jeff Plasterer, Wayne County Council President, and Ken Poust, Wayne County Commissioner, Wayne County Commissioner President, waiting in the wings. So we'll bring them in as we continue with the In Focus Election Special on Whitewater Community Television's WGTV Channel 11.
Hi, what seems to be bothering you?
Hey, Doc, I got a fever and chills. I really don't think I should be on the road.
Okay, I think that's something we can help you with.
Real-time care anywhere. Read Health Now, right beside you.
Hi, how can I help you?
My daughter has a fever and she isn't feeling well.
Okay, let's get her feeling better.
Receive quality care within the comfort of your own home. Read Health Now, right beside you.
Communities should be prepared for disasters because we have to be able to help ourselves. There's less and less resources available from the state and federal government, so we have to be resilient, not only as individuals but as a community. But we have to be prepared. We have to have plans in place. We have to have emergency kits. Just the better that we're prepared as individuals and as families will then in turn help us as communities be better prepared for emergencies.
Greetings, Red Wolf Nation. This is Kyle Wright with the Indiana University East Athletic Department. We hope you'll join us on Friday nights for Inside IUE Sports, a weekly television program where we meet the players, coaches, and athletes who are part of Red Wolf Nation and Indiana University East Athletics. Watch Inside IUE Sports on Friday evenings on WETV Channel 20.
3 years ago, I came here to play basketball here at IU East, and I'm a business finance major, and I really just wanted to get into a bank, and First Bank Richmond was very accepting and gave me an opportunity. I kind of got to see more as an employee instead of a student athlete of how they really impact the community. Back home, I feel like there's really not an organization like First Bank Richmond that gives back to their community like they do here in Richmond. First Bank Richmond is just very generous in all that they do in the community, and that is tremendous.
Welcome back to the In Focus Election Special on Whitewater Community Television's WGTV Channel 11. We'll be burying our heads a little bit in the paperwork as we have some unofficial and very early vote numbers. The number was not 11,000. Early voting ballots cast 9,775. And we'll go through some of those numbers, and those numbers you're seeing up on the township board members and things like that will continue to come through again. Those are not the final numbers. These are just the early vote numbers. But we've changed the seats out again. The sheriff says he'll pick me up afterwards for being a pain. That happens sometimes. Ken Poust, Wayne County Commissioner President, and Jeff Plaster, Wayne County Council President. Gentlemen, thank you both for being here, and congratulations on your hard-earned, well-fought, both primary and general election victories.
Jeff and I just really worked hard against that. Very hard. We've been working very hard for 20 years.
Well, yes, indeed.
That's right.
Curious, you've both obviously just been reelected to 4-year terms. Let's start, and you're both part of the Eastern Indiana Regional Planning Commission, which we'll talk about it coming up in just a little bit. But as you have gone through the last few years with the commissioners, look forward a little bit, what should residents be looking toward that the commissioners are working toward here in these next 6 months or so?
Next 6 months, well, as Jeff will tell you when you talk with council, it's been a rather difficult year in looking at what 2019 is going to be able to fund for us. Council has been very good to the commissioners this past year in many of the projects that we started in 2014, as you know, Eric. We started in 2014 with a report from DLZ showing all of our buildings and our equipment throughout our facilities and all the different buildings that we have, and council has been good enough to fund that. This year they funded several $1 million worth of projects, and so we're in the process of completing the ones that we have. We have about 4 or 5 that are not finished yet this year that will be moving into the first part of next year. A couple of new projects that we're working on. We'll be finalizing the ADA compliance for the front entrance of the courthouse is one that we're working on. We're looking at ways other than tax dollars. Of course, they're all tax dollars, but to apply for some grants, see if we can fund that particular project that way. Also, we will be bidding here and should be getting the bids back in November. The jail bond projects, council's worked extremely hard on that. There are some excess funds there that we're able to utilize for capital projects in the jail. The jail's about 13 years old, which is the equivalent to about 26 years in age. So
is that like dog years? 26 years?
It's used
well,
hard.
If we could pull
jail years, that's a new one.
If we could pull the sheriff back, that's what he's always told me. He says, Ken, now you know we operate 24 hours, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And that's why I need this project, you know. So we have actually that we're able to pay on a jail bond 37 projects that our architect is working with right now that we will be bidding out in November that we're going to do into the jail. So we'll be working with all of those projects. Also, we have to finalize the HVAC system in the courthouse. We have 70 units in there that we'll be working on, and we'll be able to take 70
different units in the courthouse?
Units. And we'll be able to take those down one at a time so we don't have to shut the whole system down. So we'll be able to work over the winter holidays and into spring. And then in November, December, we'll be bidding out the air conditioning system on that, and it takes about 12 weeks for delivery on that. So that would arrive, we hope, sometime in April, that we can begin to do the installation of that particular cooling project that we have on there. And that's one of the big ones that we're working on. We also, council asked us this year to work on the Wayne County Fairgrounds to try and bring more income.
Is that how that works?
We did.
Wait a minute.
That's right.
Is that really how that works?
Well,
That's not exactly how I
Now,
remember it,
he'll tell, Jeff will agree with this, that we would like for you to have more additional income coming in for the fairground.
We did say that.
And so we are working quite hard on that, and I have to admit that that's had to kind of take a back seat for some of these other projects, but we're beginning to look at that again, and we have made progress this year. We will bring in more additional funding than we had last year, so we're moving in the right direction. And a lot of folks don't know this. Wayne County Council was put $400,000 a year into that facility, just in dollars, not counting other funding and benefits for the employees that we have out there. And we have a fine facility, and we have to learn how to utilize it better, how to rent more often than what we do now, let people aware of what we have available out there.
I'll give you a case in point, if I could, on
Go for it.
on the fairgrounds. In the past, there would be typically one event on the fairgrounds at a time. And there are several facilities there, as you know. So tonight, I was happy to see, as I was at Coleman, picking up some signs after the polls closed.
You needed to have those out.
But no, it was after 6 o'clock when the polls were closed, and I picked those up. But there was an auction going on in the Raper Center at the same time that voting was going on in Coleman. So those are the kind of things that we've asked the commissioners to look at. How can you maximize utilization of that facility, which is a very nice facility. If you look at other county fairgrounds around the state, we have a very nice facility, but it's expensive. $400,000 approximately a year has been the budget in recent years, and we need to be able to generate more of that back in revenue from renting the space. So that's one of the projects that Ken's working on.
And it's going to be a good project. We're looking at a lot of different things. We're even looking at starting either with the Wayne County Foundation or an independent foundation for the fairgrounds to work on that, to try and build up funds in that particular area. So we're starting, and Jeff has been helpful in looking at that and challenging us on there to look and see what else we can do and look out of the box. What haven't we done in the past?
I think one of the areas that council wants us to be even more aggressive than we have been the last couple of years is on looking to the future and doing some planning, some long-range planning. So we've started to do that over the last 4 or 5 years.
Long-range planning in terms of what in particular? In particular areas?
Well, operations of county government.
Okay.
What do we need to be focusing more attention on, more resources on? Resources are limited. I'm sure you hear that from most of the elected officials you talk to. But certain aspects of county finances keep going up. Those things that deal with health care, health insurance for our employees, we're spending more in that area. Health care for inmates, you just heard the sheriff talking about how that continues to increase. And in general, the whole area of criminal justice, whether it's the probation office, the public defender's office, the prosecutor's office, the jail, the sheriff's department, the courts. That is the growth industry, unfortunately, in government, and most of it is attributable to the drug problem. So what kinds of things can we do to offset, help get treatment for, and break this cycle that has been building over the last several years? So what can we do in the area of planning that will allow us to make sure the resources are in the right places and we don't simply continue through inertia to do the same things that we've always done. You know the old saying, if you always do what you always did, you always get what you always got, and we need to be better than that. And so we have deliberately been working on planning to make sure that we're moving in the proper direction. In terms of economic development, for example, there has emerged new thinking in economic development. 10 years ago, 20 years ago, even 5 years ago, most people's attention was focused on trying to recruit that next big factory, or the Amazon
Right.
headquarters
Right.
too.
It's coming here, right?
It's probably not, but maybe
Well,
stranger
we
things have
thought so,
happened.
yes.
But my point there is that as you read the literature, as you talk to people who are deeply involved in economic development, the new trend is to focus on quality of place. To be able to attract people to the community who have the skills that employers need, to be able to retain people who already live here in the community, and that means developing amenities, that means investing in infrastructure, it means investing in training capacity. And so we need to really
That
look
is a
at that.
completely different thought for Wayne County, isn't it? Because there was a conversation.
You've also heard our executive director of the Eastern Indiana region. He's giving you the full speech is what he's doing there.
But there has been conversation for a while as to
Right.
how much government should be involved in that quality
Absolutely.
of place.
Absolutely. And I continue to maintain that we first need to develop a plan. What is it that we need to do that will attract, retain, develop a talent pool for local employers, regional employers, because we share the workforce in our 5 counties, even beyond the 5 counties of eastern Indiana. We share workforce. People commute readily, and they'll commute for an hour. We have data that shows that there are literally hundreds, if not thousands, of people in this region who commute more than 30 miles to a place of employment and then commute back, and vice versa. Wayne County actually, in most years, draws more people from outside to fill positions that are available here than we export. But most of the other counties in this region export employees. People live in those communities, but they come to Richmond to work, or Wayne County to work, or they go to Indianapolis or other places. So we need to look in detail at what we need to do to be able to, again, attract, retain, and develop that talent. The EDC has a marketing campaign, Come Home,
Home in
Wayne, and I think that's a long-term strategy. It's not going to necessarily draw in thousands of people in the next 2 weeks, but it's a long-term strategy. Ken was just telling me today about somebody he was talking to whose son had left the area, and now he's a little bit older, is starting a family, and he would like to come back to the area. So we need to be developing strategies to reach those folks so that we can capitalize on that. We are understaffed, and we have hundreds of open positions that some that can't be filled because people don't have the skill sets, some that can't be filled because there just aren't enough people in the workforce. So
Are they paying the type of wage that people want?
there is upward pressure, certainly, on the wage scale. Melissa could probably tell you more about that than I can, but there definitely is upward pressure. We're seeing those wages go up. The county has just undertook a wage study and looked at other governmental entities of similar size and scope across the state. And we are making adjustments to our entry-level positions in particular to make sure that we're competitive and can attract people to the positions in the county. So,
and that's an important piece. I think, you know, every business or nonprofit or government entity has to do that.
Absolutely.
You know, what's the, I think the saying is that it costs 40% more to hire a new person than to retain an existing employee. So, you know, looking at that and how it balances out. And I do see that upward trend. If you look at the different businesses, manufacturing specifically, we've had growth with Sugar Creek coming in, with Blue Buffalo ramping up their workforce, and so the other manufacturing facilities are looking at their pay scales and trending upward. But as you pointed out, with those employees, even if we can attract employees to come work and fill those spots, if they're driving back to Dayton or back to Cincinnati or back to Henry County or wherever home, they're taking those tax dollars with them.
Exactly.
They're taking their income and shopping and eating out and doing all the things, building the economy where their homes are.
Right.
And so that really plays into what the Eastern Indiana Planning Commission has done recently with the housing study and
Absolutely.
looking at not just quality of place, but do we have the right types of homes that these employees can
And that-
afford and want.
That study shows
You've got a couple
that-
of minutes, but can you talk to that?
Sure. The housing study
needs an
was.
hour.
You used all of your time talking about your
We'll have
DSZ
him
report.
back on regular In Focus to do that, actually, because this is something that the community heard a lot about.
Absolutely,
Very important.
absolutely. And the results are in. We have deficiencies in our housing stock. One of the statistics that stands out to me is 50% of the housing stock in Wayne County and actually in the region was built prior to 1960. So as our consultant liked to say, 50% of our housing stock was built prior to the Beatles. Okay, and so for those of you who don't know who the Beatles are, that really
That's a
is
problem.
telling. But,
And then we'll be putting up an apartment building for you.
now that's not all bad, because one of the nice things about Eastern Indiana is the architecture
Yes.
of the community. So the disturbing part is that a lot of that older housing stock is also in disrepair. So we're looking at options. What can we do? We've put together a committee. Steve Higginbotham from Wayne County Government is chairing a committee of planning directors from across the 5 counties. They're reviewing the data. They're reviewing the input from our focus groups and from our surveys. Before the end of the year, I'm told, they will put forward some recommendations. From that point, we will go to more localized committees, because the region is a planning entity, but implementation is going to be primarily in the local communities. And so what pieces that the planning directors recommend and that come out of the housing study make sense in different communities. At our most recent board meeting, we heard from Mayor Mike Pavey of Rushville. Rushville is taking the approach that they actually, the city bought 50 acres of ground. They are working with a developer. They're putting in the infrastructure, the streets and sidewalks and utilities, and then they have a deal with this developer then to purchase lots. They're going to build market rate apartments, which don't exist in Rushville currently. And so the challenge is, who else should be looking at those kind of things? I think most of the region really needs to look at that to see how we can do this. We believe the days are gone when there's enough profit incentive to lure developers into rural areas like eastern Indiana. They can build in Indianapolis, the donut counties, the growth centers of the state. They can build hundreds of units all in a small area. They can sell them like that at premium prices, and that can't happen in Richmond or in eastern Indiana in general. So what can we do to provide the incentives to make sure that we have new housing stock available? And so we'll be looking at that in the coming 6 months. Hopefully we'll have some recommendations from those committees.
Okay, we'll have you back on a regular In Focus, and we'll go through some of those recommendations near the end of the year.
Great.
How about that?
That'd be awesome.
And we'll leave him alone.
Leave
So
him
you
alone.
have all the time. How about that?
Well, Jeff's done a good job, and I think the key thing, not only are we learning a lot out of the housing study and the set plan that they've put together, but the cooperation in the 5 counties. For the first time, we're really seeing a good cooperation between 5 counties, and as Jeff can give you another couple hours on, they're going
Be happy
November
to.
the
Anytime.
16th for a stellar program in Indianapolis. They have a full presentation ready, and I'm so confident the work he's done that we're going to be designated a stellar community for the 5-county area. And as this Eastern Bloc works together, we certainly can have more force in the state legislature when we need to get something accomplished when we have the 5 counties working together.
And I'll tell you that all of the projects in our region's stellar application are geared to that very thing: attraction, retention, and development of talent for the local workforce. So we're really excited about that, and we should know by the end of the year whether we get that stellar designation. So stay tuned.
Okay. The numbers that you've been seeing on the screen, I want to remind you, are not final numbers. The champagne is not popping in many places except in these folks' areas because they ran unopposed. We're going to take a break. We'll be back continuing with the numbers that we had previously. We'll put those up as we wait for final numbers from the Wayne County Clerk's Office, and we'll also bring in some new guests to talk about Hometown Media Group as we continue with the In Focus Election Special on Whitewater Community Television's WGTV, Channel 11.
Hi, how can I help you?
My daughter has a fever and she isn't feeling well.
Okay, let's get her feeling better.
Receive quality care within the comfort of your own home. Read Health Now, right beside you.
Well, let's see if we can't get someone on here.
Hi, how can I help you today?
My dad is really sick, and I just don't want to take him out in this weather.
Okay, let's get him feeling better.
Receive quality care in minutes, even in the middle of the night. Read Health Now, right beside you.
When we look at public health preparedness, we look at the overall health of the community during a disaster. When you look at a public health disaster, there are numerous things that people can do to take care of themselves. And whether that's good hygiene, washing your hands for at least 20 seconds with soap and warm water when you touch things, not touching your hand to your face. But also, if you look at a long-term public health disaster, you want to make sure that you have a great family disaster kit available, meaning that you have at least 72 hours worth of food, water, medications, those daily commodities that we need to live off every day. The best thing that you can do in a public health disaster is to stay informed. Listen to your government officials on what they suggest. If there's vaccines that we need to get or medications that we need to get in the disaster, make sure that you have those. But more than anything, make sure that you are educated, that you are prepared, and that you are well informed through the agencies that are helping to help you.
Hi, I'm Professor Tim Scales and the Director of the Center for Entrepreneurship here at Indiana University East, but most importantly, the host of In Your Business. Join me this month when my guest will be Laurel Lee Heights from Stratified.
All of the things that I'm doing for somebody else, I still want somebody to look at that outsider's perspective. And I think that's what consulting really brings, is an outsider's perspective.
Sure. I'd like to invite you to watch In Your Business, WETV, Channel 20, Tuesday nights at 9:30 p.m.
Lights and sounds from the election day today, thanks to Samantha Parks, part of our staff, for putting that together. Ryan Harris, some other members of the staff, Anthony Crespin, went out, did some shooting at some of the polling places today, so happy that they were able to do that. The numbers are going to come back up on the screen. I do want to remind you that the numbers that you are seeing are not final numbers from the Wayne County Clerk's Office. Those are the preliminary numbers from early voting that you're seeing, and things like township board members, but you'll also find Wayne County early voting numbers for some of the races that we have been dealing with, including some of the school board races, Senate race, Secretary of State race, Wayne County District 3, Wayne County Council District 3, I should say. Those numbers are all coming up, but again, we're still waiting on final numbers. And I say we because I'm joined by Melissa Vance, President, CEO of the Wayne County Area Chamber of Commerce. The Wayne County Area Chamber of Commerce are partners in the In Focus Election Candidate Forum, but we've also, since the primary, been doing a little bit of work with Hometown Media Group over in Western Wayne County, Nettle Creek Gazette, and Western Wayne News. Did I get it right?
You did.
Okay. And we have Brenda McLean, who is the owner of those newspapers, joining us. Thanks for being here this evening.
Thanks for having me. And I'll say co-owner because my husband actually should be here too, and he wasn't able to make it. So
okay,
he really does exist.
I keep hearing about this guy, but
we'll test you.
Tell us a little bit about what made you decide to take ownership of that paper and those papers, actually, create Hometown Media Group, and what you're trying to do with that.
Okay, well, that's a lot.
That is a lot.
Okay, so it wasn't an easy decision. Even though my mother started both of these papers, she started the Western Wayne News almost 30 years ago, and she started the Nettle Creek Gazette in 2005. Jim, my husband and I, live in Bloomington, or did live in Bloomington until June of this year, and we had planned to retire in that area. We really love it in southern Indiana. So we'd always told my mom, please sell the papers. We're not interested in owning newspapers and being on that kind of schedule. But things, I don't know. I can only explain it as a God thing, and I have no other way to describe it. That we just felt like we started talking about it out of the blue and decided, this is something we should take a look at, and we did. And so we went all in, and we sold our house, and we moved back, and we took over in August of 2017. So let's see, the hometown media, we created that because a lot of people knew we had Western Wayne News and they knew about Nettle Creek Gazette, but they didn't know they were both owned. They were both under the same umbrella. Right. So that's kind of why we created Hometown Media Group. It's called Media Group because we were interested in trying to figure out different ways to get news out to people, local news, not necessarily just by print media. We know that in order to keep a younger audience engaged and stay relevant with the younger audience, we're going to have to find other ways to get the news out. So, and we're certainly not alone in that in the newspaper industry. So,
right. Well, first of all, welcome home.
Well, thank you very much.
We're so glad to have you here, and it has been a fun election season. Primary and general election season with you all, and you've been busy over hosting forums and letting us play a small role in that, but talk about that a little bit.
Well, the forums have been really interesting. I mean, that's something we'd never been involved in, anything like that before. And so obviously the Chamber, certainly Eric and WCTV being a big part of it, and the hosts and everything have made them successful. But we decided to offer these forums because we realized that even though you did the In Focus programs where you interviewed people in the studio, which is great, there wasn't an opportunity though for the general audience to actually be able to directly engage with the candidates once they heard an answer to a question. So we like that two-way, feedback to the Q&A session. So that's why we decided to do that. The primary season where the sheriff's department, where the sheriff election took place, that was really interesting back in April, and that was the first one that we did. We learned a lot from that one. But we got great feedback and we had a great turnout, so we decided, okay, we have to do this again in the fall. And fortunately, you all were on board, and Kicks 96 for one, and G1013 and Andrew Hoover for the next one. Again, we've had great partners, and I would say we haven't gotten the turnout that we hoped for in the fall. We had a great turnout in the primary election, but I'm really hoping that these kind of take off and that people do say, I maybe made a different choice as a result of going to that forum. I can tell you I did in some cases. It was great to directly engage with some of the candidates.
Right.
So, yeah.
Has there been anything about this process that has surprised you? From you're coming from Bloomington, which is a slightly more open, maybe a little bit more liberal area than what you have here, even though you grew up here. Just a little. But what about this process and coming back here has about this political process has kind of energized you or interested you?
Well,
because you haven't been an innocent bystander in this. You kind of threw your hat in the ring for an open seat on the Cambridge City Town Council.
Yes. I do like to be engaged and involved in the community. And as far as the impetus for doing the forums themselves, I mean, we had somebody suggest that to us. We can't take credit for coming up with that idea. It was a suggestion that came to us, and we said, well, why not us? So,
right.
But yeah, I like to. I've been involved in workforce development. I have a bachelor's in business and a master's in adult education. So I have been involved in community activities and organizations for a long, long time through Ivy Tech. I'm very thankful for all of that. And through WGU Indiana as well. And now I'm serving with IU East on their Chancellor's Council. And so that's another great opportunity and something I'm grateful to be involved in. But I mean, I just like being involved in the community, and I like to see things happen. And, I think there's great opportunity in the Western Wayne area as much as there is in Wayne County. And I know that we can't sit back and wait for something to happen. We really need to all jump on board. So,
right.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's been interesting. We hear so many people complaining about the way things are. It's been interesting, I think, especially on the school board side, to have so many candidates step forward and say, we're willing to put our hat in the ring and do something about things rather than just sitting on the side complaining. And that's been interesting this year. And I know, through the candidate forums and a lot of the things that you've done, as well as having them here on the In Focus show, what are some surprises with that?
Well, I think some of the surprises are that, I don't know if it's a surprise, but something that I was disappointed in is that the school boards themselves don't interact with one another. I really felt like it was a healthy exercise for those who came to the forum to hear the other candidates and kind of see what they were thinking and what was going on at their school and how they approach things. And you know, I guess that's one of the things that I hope comes from the forum and maybe just some of those discussions is that does start happening, because I think they're resources for one another, and I think we're stronger as a county if they work together. I know that our superintendents meet and probably some of our other administrative level people meet, you know, across county, but why not the school board?
Right.
So that's one thing.
The three of us have actually met, we should say, and talked about how we can collaborate and provide information throughout the area. Are you okay with sticking around with us for a little while?
Sure.
Are you rushing off?
I'm not. Sure,
Okay.
I'll stick
We've got a
around.
couple of people that were on the ballot out in the green room, and we're going to bring them in. We're going to ask you to kind of sit. Maybe you have a question or two that you kind of want to pose as we go through the next couple of minutes. Is that okay?
Yeah, that'd be great.
We're going to take a short break. We're going to bring in incoming Wayne County Sheriff Randy Redder and Judge Chuck Todd. And as we take a break and then come back on the In Focus Election Special on Whitewater Community Television's WGTV, Channel 11.
Three years ago, I came here to play basketball here at IU East, and I'm a business finance major, and I really just wanted to get into a bank, and First Bank Richmond was very accepting, and it gave me an opportunity. I kind of got to see more as an employee instead of a student athlete of how they really impact the community. Back home, I feel like there's really not an organization like First Bank Richmond that gives back to their community like they do here in Richmond. First Bank Richmond is just very generous in all that they do in the community, and that is tremendous.
Family disaster plan is the document that a family would make to prepare themselves on how they would respond or how they would react to any event or emergency. The plan should be written by all members of the family. That way they have ownership, they all have involvement, everyone's ideas are addressed and concerned and all brought together to make a complete document. Contact information is important because you and your loved ones may be separated during an event. If you're separated, you have to know who to be in contact with so you all can communicate eventually together. Family members may be at different locations. They should have a central meeting point away from the home where they all know they can go to reunite and become a whole family again. Everyone should be prepared. When families are more prepared, it makes the community more prepared, and that's better for everyone involved.
Hi, I'm Eric Marsh. This month's Access to the Arts takes us from the Whitewater Valley Art Exhibit at IU East to Goddard Auditorium at Earlham College to the Murray Theater. Don't miss our conversations with Lance Crow from RAM, John Cook from Civic Hall Performing Arts Center, and our Artist Spotlight.
A firing style called raku, which is it's an ancient Japanese family, and we've kind of westernized raku from what it used to be.
Access to the Arts, 9 p.m. Thursday evenings on WETV, Channel 20.
Hi, I'm registered dietitian Jennifer Stockler.
And I'm Chef Dugan Wetzel.
We are the hosts of iHeart Cooking. This month at Elstro Plaza, we're cooking a healthy meal on the grill. Everything we're going to do from start to finish is going to be on that grill.
Absolutely.
A lot of steps with this one, but yeah, it can be very easy at the same time.
Join us on Monday nights on WETV Channel 20 at 9:30 as we cook up more heart-healthy recipes.
Welcome back to the In Focus Election Special on Whitewater Community Television's WGTV Channel 11. If this was a NASCAR race, that would be like side by side or something. You buy folks a few little toys and they start to play on election night. We are joined in studio. Yeah, we still got an hour or so to go. We're joined in studio by Judge Chuck Todd and incoming, what is the official title? I mean, is it
Sheriff-elect.
Sheriff-elect Randy Redder. Thank you, gentlemen, both for being out with us this evening. Appreciate you spending some time with us. Judge, I should start with you since you're close enough to me that, you know, if you decided to be. This is You were appointed first. You've kind of run a couple of times, but haven't had to do the real electioneering type of thing. Give us a little bit of idea as to what you are judge of, what court, and what you see.
First of all, let me say, Eric, if I could look as snazzy as you, I'd probably go statewide office, but I'm going to stick to the county right now.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, you look nice tonight.
Thanks.
Basically, Superior Court 1 and Superior Court 2 and Circuit have similar caseloads. We do all the criminal felony, everything from drugs to murder, basically, and then we do a lot of civil docket as well, a lot of family law. Dissolution or divorce, modifications of that, custody modifications, mortgage foreclosures, personal injury, medical malpractice, collection over certain amounts, probate work, guardianships, mental health hearings, protective orders, and part of it is when you're a more rural county, you're less specialized in what you might be if you're a judicial officer, for example, in Marion County. It's maybe more specialized and you have a certain, more of a niche in the docket. They do still a tremendous amount of work, but they do it in probably a less broad, maybe deeper but less broad, where we're probably broader in terms of jurisdiction, just because that's fairly common in more rural counties.
If you had to actually run for this seat, put some signs out there, really, would you? And why?
Well, I think when you want the job and you want to do the job, first of all, you realize you're blessed to have the opportunity. There are times that it's pretty challenging, and I can't say I have days that other jobs don't look attractive, but at the same point, it's, you're doing it and you're plugging away. So I think when you want the job, you put yourself out there to take it. I've been blessed. I was appointed initially by then Governor Daniels, and then I've run now twice uncontested. I can tell you it's a great way to run.
I've heard that.
I like it, but I've been blessed. I've had great support. My colleagues have been very supportive, and just the community at large. And this is where I grew up, so I love serving the community. I'm truly blessed to have the opportunity. It's trying, but at the same point, I know I'm blessed.
Sheriff-elect, do you have started putting your team together? I hear
Yes.
You're moving Sheriff Kappa out. You found him a corner to put a little cubicle or something.
Showed up with boxes.
He still has his own office.
Have you started measuring the drapes in that office?
Picking out colors and So
how have you spent this time? Obviously, there was something in the newspaper that you were starting to put your team together, name your majors, things of that nature.
I'd spent a lot of time coming into this initial election process in the primary, gathering and formulating a plan. I wanted to be able to have a plan in place when I was ready to move in, should I be fortunate enough to have been elected. I felt that it was the best way for me to take over and to share with the county that seamless transition that I really wanted. By virtue of the fact that I'm running unopposed in the general election, that made that process that much easier. And I think the county itself is going to benefit from that. Sheriff Kappa has been wonderful to work with and through this whole transition process. And we want to be able to deliver that seamless transition so the county citizens don't notice any kind of an impact or any diminished services from our department.
Sometimes that is a challenge when you're going through transitions and those sorts of things. And, hearing the fact that you spent so much time putting a plan together during election season still, I just wonder if that's a thought that other candidates in the future should think about, regardless of what position they're running for, rather than just sharing ideas, to be able to actually say, here's a plan of how it can work. So we could talk about things and what they should be and what we wish they were, but without a plan, you never get there.
Sure. Yeah, I've always been the type of person that likes to come to the table with a plan and understand at the same time that sometimes because of environmental factors or whatever, those have to change a little bit. And I've taught many of these students in law enforcement as they've grown in their professional careers that, come with a plan regardless of what that situation is, and if you have to deviate, at least you're one step ahead than you would be if you didn't have a plan at all.
Is there anything in particular that you can share with our viewers tonight about what might be included in that plan? Anything special that?
Sure, and I'd like to start off by talking a little bit about our community outreach segment of that plan. One of the things that I felt was very important for our community was this outreach, and it's really multifaceted because it not only is putting us in contact with the community and the people that we serve, but it helps us to identify some of the problems and shortfalls that the community members are having, and it allows us to get services that they may need, get them in contact with those services, and where the payoff comes is by virtue of those services, they either may not be victimized, they may not, because of the services, they may not turn to crime or other things that we ultimately have to deal with in a law enforcement basis. And we've Sheriff Kappa again in this transition process has allowed me to start with some of these programs, and we've seen several successes on a small scale already. And it's continuing to grow. In fact, today while I was waiting to come here, I met with a man that is offering another service that we would absolutely benefit from. And I'm really excited to look into that more and get something like that started here.
That sounds exciting.
I am.
Sure you don't want to offer more?
Oh, well, and there are other parts to the plan that I had talked about in my early campaign, and one of those things that probably the biggest thing for our community is to drive out drugs. Yeah. And our county is not unlike any other county, but we're all suffering from this drug epidemic. Sure. We had a record number of overdose deaths in our county last year. Fortunately, those started to diminish a little bit this year, but by me bringing in the resources that I intend to, both on the state and federal levels, redirecting our own officers, redirecting their focus, and educating the public. I mean, there's so many parts of this recipe that when they all come together, my intent is to make this community a place where the drug culture just simply does not want to thrive.
I mean, it is one of those things that not one thing is going to fix this
That's
issue.
right.
It's a lot of things, a lot of people working together to fix it. We've talked a lot about Belden and their program that they've implemented that's been a very outside the box and drawn national attention. But it's things like that, things like on the RPD side, the Coffee with the Cop,
Yep.
and then the outreach
Community
things that
outreach.
you all do. Just a little bit here and there, and then I'm sure working with the court systems as well on how can we reintegrate people into the community in a positive way.
The courts really don't. How do the courts look at that when you're dealing with sentencing? Are you in any way thinking about what happens on the other side of their sentencing? They do their time, they get out. Can that in any way affect how you look at a person, how you think about a person, how they seem to react in front of you? You always say, well, they look remorseful. Does that actually affect how you react to somebody when you're doing sentencing?
Well, as far as the actual sentencing that are imposed, when the sentencing is left to the court, of course, still a vast majority of cases are handled by plea agreement, and there the court's decision is either accept or reject the plea. And so it's really that straightforward. But in cases where you sentence either after a jury trial or upon a mercy plea, for example, yeah, remorse is one of the factors that you look at. There are a whole group of statutory factors, but based on some of the issues we're trying to deal with and what's referred to many times as the drug epidemic, whatever you might want to call it. There clearly is substance abuse and substance use is been pretty rampant, at least in my time. I've been around the criminal justice system since 1990 in some form, and it's clearly out there. And what's really done is the opiates. That's what we saw really the explosion in, and about the time that it maybe settles a little bit, then you have methamphetamine that seems to pick back up. And so, kind of going back to your question, what you try to do, or I try to do with young offenders, and I know other judges do as well, is try to have some conversation with them. But the reality is you're with them for such a small window, and it's not like I can have an open, unlimited dialogue with them. They have certain constitutional rights that I'm there to protect. They have defense counsel, but I do try to spend that extra time to try to appeal to them. Many times I'll tell them, the folks, if they're fortunate, they'll have 3 or 4 folks out there supporting them, and many times I'll ask, is you see anybody out there that you did drugs with, or that sold you drugs, or you sold drugs to? Those people are never in the seats. It's always the people that go through it with you. But it's a huge challenge right now, and numbers create a lot of tension on the system, resources, and trying to redirect it. We've tried pretrial drug diversion program, and it's met with some success, but again, how you measure success, it is tough. If you measure it in, hey, they completed the program 100% successful, you're not going to get much success in those types of cases. It's trying to look at marginally where they're at and then trying to move them forward in a positive direction. So it is a total effort. I was involved in the statewide opiate summit that they had in Indianapolis, about 1,000 folks from all aspects of the criminal justice system that went, judges, law enforcement, was there prosecutors, defense counsel, and everybody's having the issue, and I don't think anyone has a quote figured out how to resolve it, but people are still plugging every day, and you can either just roll over and say, well, that's the way it's going to be, or you can continue to try to do something about it. And again, we're blessed with a lot of people in this community that are still trying to do stuff, not always with success, but they get up the next day and you're plugging it, trying to do something to try to address it the best you can. It's not a solid, nice, fit in the box answer, but it's the reality of what you're dealing with.
Eric kind of touched on the what I would call the stigma side. You talked about after people have done their time. Do you see a lot of recidivism, and that's related to what you might think is the stigma of trying to overcome and get a job once they've got some kind of record, especially in small communities? I think that's...
Yeah, when the group Heroin is Here was started more or less by Reed Hospital, and that brought a lot of people to the table, and that broke into some subgroups, and that group has more or less been taken over by Drug Free Wayne County, and there's still a lot of people working out of that outreach, but that was clearly one of the areas that are addressed, because it's easy when you get back out, and you kind of get beat down again, then it's easy to return to that. And then there's the whole, there's the whole science of it, and I've tried to better educate myself on the science of opiates and that type of use and how it proliferates further use. But clearly the mental aspect of that, for some of these folks, they've been beat down pretty good, and so you're trying to encourage the best you can and trying to get them in front of folks that are, again, not about using but encouraging, but it's an uphill battle. Again, I try to encourage people in the windows that I have and tell them, right, wrong, that, everybody sitting in this courtroom, no one wants their 5 worst moments paraded in here, myself included. And so the reality is you try in the moments you have to try to be uplifting to these folks, because sometimes they're not hearing a positive word anywhere. Now, does it always work? Absolutely not. You have the same people back in 6 months later, 3 months later, 2 years later. But you know what? If it hits 1 out of 20, it's 1 out of 20, right. And you keep plugging.
Okay. Gentlemen, I've just been told in my ear that some final numbers we think are beginning to come in, so we know you all are probably going to want to be out a little bit. We appreciate you taking some time to come in and talk to us. Congratulations, obviously, to both of you on your election, your re-election, and hopefully we will have a chance to talk to both of you, although we don't talk to judges much. That's a good antisocial like that.
We also appreciate, everybody here appreciates the efforts that this station does for not only candidates and bringing things like this to the forefront, but just the community. And you're a class act, Eric. You're a true professional in what you do here. And you got great staff members as well. You're blessed.
Thank you. I am.
Not a paid plug. Just
all right.
Sincere stuff.
Appreciate you both being here. We're going to take a break. We'll come back. We'll get some numbers up on the screen, and we'll continue conversation as we continue with the In Focus Election Special on Whitewater Community Television's WGTV Channel 11.
Hi, I'm Sherry Harlan, program host for Read Beside You. Join me on the next episode where my guest will be Dr. Tom Hani, Read Health endocrinologist, and Christy Farrell from Read Health Diabetes and Nutrition Education. Join us Thursday, 8 o'clock on Channel 20.
I'm Al Bledsoe.
And I'm Ron Chappelle, co-host with Al here at Proudly to Serve. On our next program, we have Denise Retz and Ashley Miller from the Richmond Parks Department, and they're going to be taking over the Veterans Day Parade, and we're so excited about it.
You can see our show on Monday evening, 8 p.m. on WCTV Channel 20. Thank you very much.
Thanks for watching Proudly We Serve.
Communities should be prepared for disasters because we have to be able to help ourselves. There's less and less resources available from the state and federal government, so we have to be resilient, not only as individuals, but as a community. But we have to be prepared. We have to have plans in place. We have to have emergency kits. Just the better that we're prepared as individuals and as families will then, in turn, help us as communities be better prepared for emergencies.
3 years ago, I came here to play basketball here at IU East, and I'm a business finance major, and I really just wanted to get into a bank, and First Bank Richmond was very accepting and it gave me an opportunity. I kind of got to see more as an employee instead of a student athlete of how they really impact the community. Back home, I feel like there's really not an organization like First Bank Richmond that gives back to their community like they do here in Richmond. First Bank Richmond is just very generous in all that they do in the community, and that is tremendous.
And thanks to the staff again for going out and getting some of that footage at some of the various election places today, Election Day here in Wayne County. We continue with the In Focus Election Special on Whitewater Community Television's WGTV Channel 11, joined by Melissa Vance, President, CEO of the Wayne County Area Chamber of Commerce, and our partners in this, Brenda McLean, who is the owner of co-owner of Hometown Media Group, which includes the Nettle Creek Gazette and Western Wayne News, and a partner with us, trying to help get information out to the community. And we're joined by Harmony Glenn, who is a Richmond resident and board member.
Leadership team.
Leadership team for a group called Indie Feminists. And we didn't have an election cycle last year, but if you were with us on the previous one, you might or might not know that Harmony is my daughter. And first of all, start by, for those who aren't familiar with Indie Feminists, give us a little bit of background on that group real quick.
So we're a grassroots organization that works to advocate for reproductive justice, which is a really holistic look at reproductive health, which takes into account not only, the issues about whether or not you have children, but really centers family and community in terms of making sure that the policies that we're enacting are providing safe and healthy communities for Hoosiers to have and raise families in.
Okay. As you look, and you look a lot at what the state legislature is doing and has done, how would you rate where the state of Indiana is in terms of I know that look, just be nice in the answer, in how you all measure that, and what are the measurements that you all use?
I would say that we do not do a good job in a lot of metrics. We have a really high infant mortality rate. We're one of the highest in the nation. We are second in the nation for sexual assault of young women. So by a lot of the metrics that we pay attention to, I mean, we're always low down Indiana on the list for quality of life in comparison to other states. We're always low down on the list in median wage. It's just all, HIP 2.0, which, is, pioneering a way for other states to put really onerous requirements on their healthcare exchange and their Medicaid. Even a lot of what we're seeing today with, voter ID issues and stuff like that. Voter ID law started in Indiana. It was our Supreme Court case upholding that law that has allowed all of these other states to put these laws into place and create more and more stringent requirements.
As you are looking at legislators being elected, the state legislators, representatives being elected, what is that group looking for? And I saw you put up the post that you would be here. You said you'd be the one with low expectations. Why low expectations? What about this particular election? What about this conversation has prompted that thought?
So my low expectations, to be honest, have been building over my entire adulthood, as I have been actually out in the world and seeing the way the world actually functions, out from, underneath your protective bubble that you and my mom created. And it's just really culminated in an understanding that regardless of who wins, we still have the same problems. If the blue wave rolls through tonight, we still have experienced the last 2 years. We've still experienced all the decades of work that got us to the point of the last 2 years. All that damage will still be there tomorrow. And it will still be a tremendous undertaking to roll any of that back and continue to work to move our communities, our state, our country towards a more equitable and justice-focused future. If Hillary Clinton had won 2 years ago, the day after the election, we still would have been the same country. All still the same people doing the same things. Some of it is louder and more out in front now. The people who had, racist and sexist and homophobic and transphobic and Islamophobic and xenophobic thoughts to begin with, they're more emboldened, but they were always there.
Well, the thought, you're watching the In Focus candidate forum. Actually, no, you're not. You're watching the In Focus election special on Whitewater Community Television's WGTV Channel 11. The numbers that you are seeing on the screen are the final numbers from the Wayne County Clerk's Office. So these numbers are final, and we're going to get to those. And you're also seeing the highlighted winners there. So the staff is taking care of that. So as you watch these numbers come through, we will be talking about some of that coming up, but we're going to finish this conversation with Harmony. So as you look toward the next legislature coming in, what are 2 or 3 of the ideas that Indie feminists are hoping that state legislators will think about as they put legislation forward? And are there pieces of legislation that you all have heard maybe are in the works? Because sometimes legislators will float trial balloons out there about various things. Are there certain things out there that you all are looking toward or concerned about?
I am always watching bills not only around healthcare and healthcare rights and access, but also things like, what are we doing with our TAMF and our SNAP dollars? Are we making sure that Hoosiers get food? Are we working to expand access to those programs to the people who really need it? What are they going to do around, we've seen it come up the last couple of sessions. People are really trying to work on gerrymandering. I think that will be another fight. I don't know that it'll be a winning one, but it'll be a fight again. I am sure we are going to see a robust conversation around a hate crimes law.
What would your group consider a win coming out of a hate crime? Because the governor has said he would like to see one, which puts it at least on the table where it wasn't before. You would ask some legislators before about the need for a hate crimes law, and their answer would pretty much be very simply, you can't legislate morality. But now the governor has at least put it on the table. So what could be considered a win?
To be honest, this is a longer conversation than we have time for tonight about my feelings about hate crimes laws and whether or not they are necessary or effective and who they actually wind up targeting and harming. But for me personally, I won't even speak for the group as a whole. For me personally, the least I am hoping for is that a hate crimes law does not encompass people's employment.
Okay. Is there anything else that if someone wants to get involved, if someone wants to find out about you all, what you do, how can they reach?
We are Indie Feminists on Facebook. We are Indie Feminists at Gmail. You can find us on Twitter. Whenever we are at events, we tend to, Twitter's kind of quiet unless we're somewhere doing something, and then we tend to live tweet events. So you'll see our Twitter account pick up after the first of the year during the legislative session, because we sit through a lot of committee meetings, because especially in a state with a supermajority on one side of the aisle, the best way to defeat legislation is before it comes out of committee.
Wow. I am impressed, and I'm so energized by the fact that there is a group like this of young adult women. You didn't say what the demographics are of your group.
It is a pretty wide age range. We have everything from just out of college or still in college, maybe graduate level, to retirees.
Wonderful. And
all over the state.
How big is the group? All over?
Yeah, we have, I would say, probably about 20 people on our advisory board. And then we have an action group, which you can join. Actually, there's a link to that on our Facebook page. And that group, I think, is running around 40 members right now. And I know there are some people who are waiting on me to send them some messages for the next step in joining. I was trying to get through tonight and then dive back into that afterwards. So.
Well, it's very exciting to know about that group. Thank you. I'm really glad I met you.
I'm always glad to share.
Yeah.
Thanks for being here.
Thanks for inviting me.
No problem. The numbers you're seeing on the screen again are some final numbers. Let's go through some of those real quick that you may not be seeing. Ballots cast. I know there's been a lot of talk about how many ballots were cast. The number is 20,142. Straight party, if you're having interest in that sort of thing, about 64.9% voted straight party. Republican 7,200, a little over. I'm going to round these a little bit. Democratic Party 3,700. In Wayne County, Mike Braun 11,240 votes, 56.9% of the vote. Joe Donnelly 7,480 votes, 37.9%. Lucy Brenton, the Libertarian candidate, 1,038. 5.3% of the vote. Another race that could be cared about is State Representative District 6. Greg Pence, 11,696 votes, 59% of the vote. Janine Lee Lake, 7,129 votes, 36% of the vote. Tom Furkenhoff, 990 votes, District 27. Jeff Rotz, almost a 2-to-1 winner, basically, over his opponent, Jake Hogue, 12,900 votes to 6,700, just under 6,800. State Representative District 54, we haven't mentioned that. Tom Saunders running unopposed in this particular race. District 56. Brad Barrett, 11,965 votes, defeating Jeff Locke with 5889, or 32.1% of the vote. Jeremy Y. with 529 votes. I have not gotten deep into it. I know that you've been looking, the race for County Council District 3, the final numbers. Do you have those close?
I do. Beth Leisure on the Republican ticket got 2,873 votes with 62.3%, defeating Nick Elder, the Democratic candidate, with 37.7% of the vote. I think when you look down, a bit of a surprise with how incredibly close is the Center Township board member. Sherry Markley won with 33.9%. Next in line was Jody Freck, sorry about that, with 33.3%. And so by 0.6%.
Wow.
That's quite
Every
close.
vote counts.
Exactly. Exactly.
As we look at the town council, City of Hagerstown, Donnie Benedict and Brian Longbonds, 353 votes, 327 votes. Those are the incumbents in those seats. They have also been reelected. The third person in that race was Alan Bullock. He finished with 247 votes. And we will get into some of the school board elections. And we've also got a couple of the candidates that won tonight out in the green room. So we're going to take a break, switch out a couple of seats, bring them in, and talk to them as we continue with the In Focus Election Special on Whitewater Community Television's WGTV Channel 11.
Hi, how can I help you?
My daughter has a fever and she isn't feeling well.
Okay, let's get her feeling better.
Receive quality care within the comfort of your own home. Read Health Now, right beside you.
Well, let's see if we can't get someone on here.
Hi, how can I help you today?
My dad is really sick and I just don't want to take him out in this weather.
Okay, let's get him feeling better.
Receive quality care in minutes, even in the middle of the night. Read Health Now, right beside you.
Hi, I'm registered dietitian Jennifer Stockler.
And I'm Chef Dugan Wetzel.
We are the hosts of iHeart Cooking. This month at Elstro Plaza, we're cooking a healthy meal on the grill. Everything we're going to do from start to finish is going to be on that grill.
Absolutely.
A lot of steps with this one, but yeah, it can be very easy at the same time.
Join us on Monday nights on WETV Channel 20 at 9:30 as we cook up more heart-healthy recipes.
Hi, I'm Eric Marsh. This month's Access to the Arts takes us from the Whitewater Valley Art Exhibit at IU East to Goddard Auditorium at Earlham College to the Murray Theater. Don't miss our conversations with Lance Crow from RAM, John Cook from Civic Hall Performing Arts Center, and our Artist Spotlight.
A firing style called raku, which is it's an ancient Japanese family, and we've kind of westernized raku from what it used to be.
Access to the Arts, 9 p.m. Thursday evenings on WETV, Channel 20.
3 years ago, I came here to play basketball here at IU East, and I'm a business finance major, and I really just wanted to get into a bank, and First Bank Richmond was very accepting, and it gave me an opportunity. I kind of got to see more as an employee instead of a student athlete of how they really impact the community. Back home, I feel like there's really not an organization like First Bank Richmond that gives back to their community like they do here in Richmond. First Bank Richmond is just very generous in all that they do in the community, and that is tremendous.
There was some issues with the TV.
some of the sights and sounds of Election Day in Wayne County here at Whitewater Community Television, WGTV Channel 11. It is the Election Night Special being made possible by our friends at the Wayne County Area Chamber of Commerce. Thank you very much for your support on this. Melissa Vance with me all evening.
Pleasure. I'm not nearly as sparkly as you are. Just point that out.
And also made possible through the support of both Reed Health and First Bank Richmond, and we appreciate them supporting our efforts to bring some information to the community. We have with us four people who are relieved, happy,
exhausted.
Exhausted. I'm sure the doctor can prescribe something for that. 18 hours of sleep or something. Congratulations, Jeff Rott, State Senator, re-elected to District 27. Beth Leisure, newly elected to the Wayne County Council District 3. Congratulations. Susan Isaacs back as the Wayne County trustee, and Dr. Brad Barrett, now the State Representative, District 56. How is that?
It sounded good.
Did you like that? Nice.
That's
Go
good.
for it.
You know, we've had pleasure of talking with each one of you leading up to tonight about what the issues are and what's important to you. But for those that maybe didn't get to watch that episode or haven't had a chance to engage with you personally, tell us, you know, leading into next year, what's your number one goal? If you were to rank your goals and all the things you would like to see in your respective offices, Dr. Barrett?
You want to start here?
Let's start there.
Well, I was thinking about this earlier, and when you go through those forums and those debates, there's a lot of specific questions we drill down on, and in reality, I don't anticipate that a lot of the things that are going to be presented at the State House are already going down the pike right now. I'm not going to go there tomorrow and initiate legislation on something just like that. So I really look at the process from my standpoint as developing relationships, building credibility, and then really trying to accelerate the momentum that we already have. I can't tell you how much I look forward to working with Jeff. He's been such a mentor to me and such a help through the process, and a contact that goes back several years. So I just couldn't be more excited about those opportunities.
Well, Jeff, I mean, he was exactly right. Building relationships. You all are not going to pass any legislation on your own. You're not going to move things forward in the state on your own. So, once you get to know the players, what's kind of the next step? I mean, you're the veteran.
Well, so I can't agree with. I don't know if we call you Dr. Barrett or
Brad.
State Rep Barrett or Brad. Yeah, but Brad's absolutely correct. And I spent some time with a young man today. He took the day out of his senior year of high school. He was interested in politics, and he spent the day with me. And one of the things I mentioned to him is exactly that it's based on relationship, right? And so you have to have relationships to get things done. There's no two ways about it. And so that it's equally as important in every relationship that we have. So if I'm going to get along with my wife, we have to be able to have a decent relationship. And so that's kind of the basis and the foundation of it all. And so I look forward to working with Brad. Most definitely. He took my appendix out a number of years ago, so he knows
so you have to be nice, right?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. And so he had come to the State House in a Doctor of the Day, I think, once, and then testified last year during committee on a couple of pieces of legislation. And so bringing attention back to this East Central Indiana is incredibly important, and I'm grateful for Dick Hammond. So tonight at midnight, he's officially out of office, and thanks to him. But it's a new day, and so we're going to roll forward.
Great. Beth, well, this is a new role for you, but you're not new to the community, not new to serving. You've been the president of the Cambridge City Chamber of Commerce and many other things, but What excites you about this?
Well, I've actually spent the whole last year preparing for this. I've been to the meetings, and I know what the things that they're working on right now. And as these guys, I'm going on to a council, not just by myself. I don't have a big agenda to see what I want done. I want to work with everybody and you know, just make Wayne County the best place it can be.
That's great.
Save the one that you have to tell to be quiet for last.
You've got a lot of things that you work on a regular basis, and you're on a roll.
I am on a
So
roll. I'm scared to death, but I'm going to do it some more because a lot of the programs and projects that we've started since I've been in office, the laundry project and the community centers and things like that, are not yet sustainable outside of the township. They're getting that way from outside contribution and stuff, and that's my goal. Nobody has contested the office of Wayne Township Trustee, I think, once in the last 25 years, if I'm not mistaken. That's what my long-term employees say. They've seen it, remember it once. So you get in there and you think you can pick how many terms you're going to run, but that's not the way case. So this kind of was a wake-up call for me and kind of makes me get back to appreciating the opportunities, and I love what I do, and I'm grateful to do it, and also to give me a sense of urgency to really focus on getting things to be self-sustaining. So if I do happen to not win next time or whatever, that those things will survive me.
That's great. One of the things I love about what you and your office does is the partnering with churches and community organizations to actually meet the goals, not just relying on tax dollars and your
Absolutely.
resources, but how do you leverage the resources of others and make sure you're not duplicating?
Relationships. It's my little tiny low level. It's the same as anything else. We have developed relationships and all these. It's just a different atmosphere amongst us, and we can call each other. And I will know if I send that person that's at my desk over there how much they're going to get, and I'm not running them all around town and stuff. And we trust each other. It's great. So it's all about relationships. Same thing.
As you two look at East Central Indiana, obviously your area is mostly Wayne County. Your area goes beyond that, but you're looking at East Central Indiana. What do you both think, just having gone through this area needs most from you all at the state legislature as you go forward? What are your hopes for this area, and what do you think you can help bring or do for this area right now?
I think my opinion would be that things have to start locally. I think, in my opinion, looking at the state to create something wouldn't be necessarily correct unless there are things already out there that are available that are moving forward. So we've begun the Eastern Indiana EIRPC with Jeff Plaster at the head of that. So that's a coalition of 5 counties as a region. We've advocated for that up to this point to see that we end up in the Stellar project, so we're waiting on that. Where I think we'll hear that coming up pretty soon. But that's pretty significant for this area. So it's Randolph, Wayne, Union, Fayette, and Rush counties, I believe, and we're waiting on one other county and going into that. But that's a pretty significant thing for this area. So we look at the opioid crisis, the economy, and the poverty in there. So we're up against the wall in a lot of areas. So gaining attention from the state as a coalition, I think is probably the beginning of it, and watching resources and then influencing the process, if you will, from that standpoint, from whatever influence we're able to create together to make sure that we're not the red-headed stepchild, right? And we're not, right? Knowing all my colleagues, I know there are other parts of the state that are in the same economic shape that we are over here, but coming together and I think with a positive attitude and working with everybody that's around, we got an uphill climb. But when I think together, we can make a difference. No two ways about it.
I know that you all probably have signs to collect, people to hug,
Yeah.
and I assume there's a party someplace, although nobody's telling me where. So we will
You're welcome to come.
take a break
Okay.
and let you all get to it. Beth Leisure, Wayne County Council District 3, congratulations. State Senator Jeff Ratz, District 27, State Representative Brad Barrett, Dr. Brad Barrett.
I'm going to have to drop something.
Your name's getting really long.
Yeah, it's just growing. And Wink County Trustee Susan Isaac, thank you all very much for taking some time to be with us. We're going to take a break. I'm not sure what just happened there. We're going to take a break. We'll be back with the In Focus Election Special on Whitewater Community Television's WGTV Channel 11. Welcome back to the In Focus Election Special of Whitewater Community Television's WGTV Channel 11. I'm Eric Marsh, joined by Melissa Vance, and in studio, Phil Quinn.
Let's get the party started.
Yeah, man.
Let's do this. How are you?
It's that time. How you doing this evening?
Doing well. I've been sitting sort of behind the scenes, getting a lot of information about the county and what's going on and around the state. So nice when we can have an election night where we're actually getting some people to talk to us honestly about what's going on. It seems like the pressure's down and some of the winners, and then also the comments that were made with Jeff Kapp are really great. But while that's going on, we've also taken a look at the statewide races. kind of analyze some of the results of the final tally that we got here in Wayne County compared to what happened back in 2014, because those are some interesting numbers. And what people are talking about in the lobby here, and what I think a lot of the viewers are talking about, straight party ticket votes. Insane this year. So let's give you some of those numbers. What I find interesting is that we had 7,200 straight party Republican ticket votes this election. Democrats,
I was surprised by that number.
That's a big number.
I was surprised
big number.
at that number.
3,700 straight party Democrat votes. And when you look at the races, especially some of the candidates that are now elect, that margin, that 65% margin, has carried on in a lot of those races. Let's see. One of the races we've been watching at the House districts in Indiana, 3 of the 6 that are up have been called. Andre Carson projected to win. Of course, Greg Pence projected to win. Jim Brooks. And then there's a couple of races that are getting interesting as more precincts are coming in.
It's interesting that you say, obviously, Greg Pence.
Yep.
Because of the way he ran his race.
Submarine campaign.
He didn't do any media, for the most part, interviews at all. Obviously, he didn't do the In Focus, but that's fine. But he also didn't talk to the Muncie newspaper. As far as I know, he didn't talk to the Indianapolis newspaper. So to kind of say that that's a given is an interesting dynamic in our republic and our voting.
I'm not going to disagree with that, but look, I mean, the guy's last name's Pence. I mean, now it's going to be, can we get Greg in, Congressman-elect, can we get him in studio and talk to him about what their policy agenda is going to be? Now that he doesn't have to worry about giving ammunition to an opponent, now it's about reaching out to the public. I hope he comes in and talks to you. I hope he comes in on my radio show. I hope he does some chamber events. So people have gotten to talk to him one-on-one. Well, let's get some questions down. Let's get some answers there. But congratulations to them. I know a lot of people in this area worked on that campaign. And Janine Lake, how impressive was she? Did well, relative newcomer. I hope she stays engaged. So,
I do too.
Yeah.
She is a lovely lady.
Yep, there's no doubt about it. A couple of things across the state that we want to make sure you mention. Let's get to Donnelly and Braun and Brenton, the campaign for state Senate, or U.S. Senate, I should say. Braun's got 57% of the vote right now. That's with 38% of the precincts reporting. Albeit, some of those are outlying county areas, outlying counties, not the real heavy city metro areas, so that could balance out. Donnelly at 39%, and then Brenton, the Libertarian candidate, with 4%. So that's going to be one of those races that's going into the evening. But what people are looking for, they're saying, how are women in the suburbs voting? What's that look like? We don't have a real good indication on that yet, but it's trending like we would expect it to at this point, which is staying pretty true to the party. So I have some school board races, because that's the other part. Many of the In Focus candidate forums, we're talking about school board. Largest percent of your tax dollars go into schools, so this is serious stuff. So let's start with Centerville. At the at-large seats, it was Brad Lambright. He got 60% of the vote.
He is the incumbent in that seat.
He is the incumbent in there. Nettle Creek, Sean Lieberman and Marcy Houghton were the winners in that race, where you got to pick 2 of those candidates. Northeastern High School, or Northeastern Schools, I should say, Eric Field, state trooper, picked up 47% of the vote. Angela Klein, who'd been sitting in that seat for about 5 months, came in at 26%. So congratulations to Eric for winning that race. Let's talk about District 3 for Richmond Community Schools. Suzanne Darengowski retains that seat, but
that's the seat actually that Dixie Robinson is
District 3.
From.
Okay. Suzanne has got 57% of the vote. Scott Davis 43%. That's right, because Suzanne was in 1, right? Okay.
Fairly close.
Fairly close.
Fairly close.
Yeah. At large for Richmond Community Schools, Keith Morey. A newcomer, actually a teacher in Centerville.
Used to be a teacher.
That's right.
In Richmond Community Schools.
Yep, and Jeff Slifer are the 2 that are going to walk away with those at-large seats.
Those have been interesting in the school board races. The number of teachers running for other districts or people who had family members who were teachers in districts. There were a number of those here in Wayne County.
Well, you have that on Richmond Community School Board. Brad Walton is a teacher in Connorsville school system. Keith is in Centerville, and that's one of the questions I know that I asked Keith when I interviewed with him. How do you make that work? How does people say, well, your attention's in Centerville, but you're doing stuff for Richmond? How's that work? And well, it's a financial issue, and there's a legality about not being able to run for the school board in the system that you teach. So yeah, it's okay. That's stuff happens.
Now have a couple of teachers sitting on the school
Right.
board. Does that change the dynamic? Does that change the conversation? How does that make things look?
Interesting perspective, and then yet, you are always, keeping an eye open to make sure that there's no conflict of interest in regard to voting.
And Jeff Slifer's keeping that other at-large seat, kind of getting in under the wire there, as it were.
Right. So that's going to be interesting to see how that dynamic shifts. And then Western Wayne Schools, Dennis Feller was the winner in District C, and then at large, you might have heard this name before, Phil Flom.
I was when I heard. And we were talking about this before our candidate forum that night. Ryan Harris turned to me and went, "Is that Phil Flum that used to be in the?" And I went, "No, he wouldn't be running for school." And then he walks up and he said, "Okay, tell me I'm crazy." I went, "No, that's fine."
Yeah.
So he will bring, I think, some interesting knowledge to that. Having worked in the state legislature, worked on education issues there, understanding how that state funding works, and maybe how to talk to the state representatives a little bit.
Well, that's exactly right. He'll know the inside track there. A couple other things. Now, this is sort of the fun, quirky stuff that you're going to hear some people talk about in the news. Johnson County, they had some serious computer issues today in the voting. Long lines, computer problems. They got them fixed. They were still able to close the polls an hour later. But then also Dave Bangert from the Journal and Courier newspaper in West Lafayette. There was a faulty voting machine that was switching votes in West Lafayette.
Oh.
Yeah, sure was. So we'll see what happens there.
Ouch.
Marion County, they had 300,000 people. That was what their approximate voter turnout was for this election in 2014, which is where people compare it the last midterms, 160,000. So we haven't seen Marion County jump into that Braun Donnelly mix, but we'll see what happens there. I think that's going to be pretty interesting. So, Republicans still maintain a huge dominant role in this state. We know that, but you cannot take away from what you're seeing trending, and I think it'll be very exciting to see what happens when we start talking about city elections, which we don't have to do tonight.
Well, we brought it up with the party chairs as you always look ahead. You always try to figure out how one race, how one election year will affect the next. So go ahead. What do you want to kick out there? What do you think the couple of hot button issues are going to be?
Well, if I can, let me put the issues to the side. When do we find out if Dave Snow announces for run for re-election? When do we see a Republican challenger step up? Is it February? Is it March? How soon after the start of the new year do we see that? As far as issues, I still think construction is a big issue for the city election. And I think there are some people that didn't like how City Council handled that public forum and that agenda and how that issue came about. And I heard from several people that are well known in the community that haven't been in politics before that are thinking about stepping up. And if that happens, name recognition becomes really important. There's also going to be a few people that aren't going to run again. What does Jeff Locke do at this point now? What does Bruce Whistle do, who's been on council for a long time? Are there some people at large that want to look at a county race? Because there's some wide open county races, some people that are not going to run on county council side. How does that shape up? So it's going to be interesting. I think food and beverage tax is lingering out there. I do.
Really?
I do.
You're going to stir that pot tonight?
But you know why?
I think it is.
You know why? Because I think the city of Richmond says, what if we use that food and beverage tax to offset emergency service? If you look at how to do that and tuck it into an economic development banner, maybe you can sell that. So we'll see. And then, overall, economically, it seems as though Wayne County, and Melissa, you probably know this better than even I, we seem to be just a tick behind the national trend. So you start to see home sales dip a little bit nationwide. We're still hanging on. Then we dip a little bit. I wonder if we've seen some of these businesses, mostly restaurants, that have shuttered doors recently for multitude of reasons.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a trend? Is that something that we see, or is it just the economy and capitalism choosing, what we'll shop here and letting their dollars vote that way? So it's going to be interesting, this city election, and certainly I'm not ready to see any TV ads anytime soon, or radio ads for that matter. So anyway.
Cool. Phil Quinn helping us out this evening. Thank you very much, sir. Before we get out of here, and we are very, very close to wrapping up this evening. Thank you. I want to turn to Melissa, obviously our partners with the Wayne County Area Chamber of Commerce, because there is a lot that the Chamber has coming up. I know that you all are thinking your annual dinner in January. That's one thing that's kind of looming out there, but you've got a few things happening between now and then that I think the community might have some interest in.
We do. Well, in follow-up to tonight, we have a meet and mingle event on November 28th at Forest Hills Country Club, where our chamber members and others will have an opportunity to go onto our website, register, to come out and meet the newly elected candidates. We're going to invite them out and have an opportunity for them to introduce themselves again face-to-face with you. So if you want to come, you can go to our website, wcareachamber.org, and register for that. We're partnering, as we talked about earlier, with the assessor's office to do property tax education, making sure that people are prepared for the audits that are coming in 2019. That's on November 16th at 8:30 at the Innovation Center. And then we have a chamber networking night coming up very shortly at Ugly Mugs on November 14th.
I got to put that one on my calendar.
We're going to be over there. It's going to be a fun night. We're partnering with First Bank Richmond and others, so it'll be fun.
And that's a Wednesday night, not a Thursday night.
It is.
Cool, I might actually be able to make that one.
That's right. It's a different night
get
for
you
a
all change of nights.
Jeff Huffine from Iron Gate Creative is going to join us for our next Business and Education luncheon on November 15th. Talking about how to further build community engagement in your online presence and your website. And then, of course, Shop Small Saturday. It's right around the corner, November 24th.
Man, that's incredible.
There's lots of things happening with that. Our Buy Local committee and all of the Main Street organizations from around the county are working hard to really put together some fun things and encouraging people to think small before they think online.
I know that's something that you've pushed. You've been out there with that one a lot. So,
yeah. Especially during this time when you know there's some businesses that are still trying to get through construction stuff. The more you can try and go in and ask, can you help me get this? The better off our economy is as a whole. Real quickly, the public question on the balanced budget,
yes.
They are calling that in favor, that constitutional amendment that has just gone. And then Hamilton County, a big district for both that U.S. Senate race, Braun 51% of the vote, Joe Donnelly 45%. So that is closer than what some people might have expected.
Okay.
There we go.
Since we're doing a couple of things, I want to remind you, of course, that if you are looking for In Focus or any of the meetings that we cover, check out WGTV online. Remember, you can find that. If you go to our website, WCTV.info, there are 4 buttons along the left-hand side. One will take you to our Facebook page, our Twitter feed, our YouTube channel, where you can find programs from our educational access channel, WETV Channel 20, and also WGTV Online. It's a great way to keep up with the conversation going on at some of the various meetings. We do invite you to support Whitewater Community Television. A lot of people have said that you have appreciated what we've tried to do during this election season and throughout the year. Consider supporting us if you can with a membership. You can find out membership information by going again to our website, WCTV.info, clicking on the membership button and becoming a member. want to have some fun. Everybody has a birthday. Want to have some fun with some birthdays, and you may have periodically seen a couple of our birthday slides go up on our Facebook page or on our bulletin board. If you'd like to wish someone a happy birthday, you can do that using our community bulletin board. You can find some slide samples, and all of the information that you need on that, again, on our website. And actually, you get a discount on that if you are a WCTV member. So that membership does make a difference.
We're members.
You're members.
I know.
So, you want to wish somebody a happy birthday, you can do that. A lot of people had fun at our annual casino night, 21 for Fun. We have set a date and a place for that. That is coming up on Friday night. That's different for us. A lot of changes. We're going from a Saturday night to a Friday night. Friday night, April 12th, we will be at the Elks Country Club. So we are going to a venue that we think we will be able to stay with, and moving to a night to try to have a little fun after you get off work at the end of a long week.
That is a fun event. I just encourage people to put that one on the calendar and make sure you go.
Absolutely.
You're not asked for a lot. You're not doing, standing there with your hand out. It's just come, have a good time, support a great organization.
Thank you. Yes, it has been. It has been a lot of fun doing that event, so we are looking forward to that one. So mark your calendar. Also, if you're looking for a way to support what Whitewater Community Television does as you head into this holiday season, if you go shopping online, now of course we would like you to buy local, but we do know that you do some shopping online, and if you happen to do it at Amazon, you can go to smile.amazon.com and make Whitewater Community Television your not-for-profit of choice. If you do that, we get a small percentage of your shopping experience. It doesn't cost you any more money, and it is another way of supporting your local public education and government access television station, and we appreciate all of that support. I am looking frantically for all of my notes, and I can't find one, so I will actually have to try to do this without notes, which could be a very difficult thing. We are going to wrap up this evening, and I need to do some thank yous. First of all, I want to start by thanking the candidates, everybody who put their name on a ballot for the primary or the general election. There are many of us who are willing to complain, go online, write posts, all of that kind of stuff, but very few of us are actually willing to put ourselves, our family, our time out there, and actually run for an office. So all of those people who put themselves out there to have their personal lives dissected, thank you all very much. Whether you were successful in your bid or not, you helped push the conversation. I want to say thank you to all of our veterans as we come up on Veterans Day. We have just spent in Wayne County the last week plus voting. Those people actually put their lives on the line so that we had the opportunity to do that. And I hope more of you continue to go out and actually support what the veterans have done for us by doing that. I need to thank the Whitewater Community Television staff. This is our 15th straight week of having a show, and one of those weeks we did 2 shows. So thank you to Ryan Harris, Anthony Crespin, Wes Miller, Michelle Thompson, Caitlin Ballard, and Samantha Parks. Thank you all very much for hanging out with us and making all of this possible for the community. A special thank you to our multi-year volunteer of the year, Steve Michael, who has been with us for all 15 weeks. Whether it was 90 minutes, 60 minutes, it didn't matter. He was here, and he is here a lot during our In Focus, and that kind of dedication to the community does need some applause and some recognition. So thank you. To the Chamber of Commerce, particularly the Issues and Advocacy Committee under the direction of Brian Ballinger, thank you all very much for being a part of this.
It's our pleasure.
Greatly appreciate the support. People have said some incredibly nice things about what this group has tried to do for the community. And they have also said some nice things about my wardrobe through these through these last 15 weeks. And for that, I have to credit my wife, Judy, who actually, the sparkly vest tonight is actually handmade. So she actually made this for me custom. So thank you all very much. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being a part of Whitewater Community Television. Thank you for being a part of community media. We are out of here. We're going to be hearing from Ivy Tech on this Thursday night's In Focus. Next week, we think Tim Scales will be hosting and talking about entrepreneurship and business. Thank you for watching the In Focus election special on Whitewater Community Television, WGTV, Channel 11. This broadcast of In Focus is being made possible through the support of Reed Health. Reed Health, right beside you. And by First Bank Richmond, with 8 locations serving Wayne County. First Bank Richmond and you, doing great things together.